We're on, Mayor.
Let's call the Park of Commerce workshop of the council to order. Councilman Lawson is present, Councilman Hodge, Vice Mayor Bill, Councilman Porter, and Councilwoman Garner is present. The clerk will be passing around a sign-in sheet in the audience. Would you please put your name on it? We appreciate it. Mr. Manager, discussion on the Park of Commerce.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and all our visitors here tonight. Let me preface the meeting with a few comments. Tonight we're here. Of course, we know we have the Park of Commerce. This park has been in, if I can use the terminology, in play for some time now, and we've gone in different directions with it. We have different faces from the start when we first offered this to now. Other people have come in to the picture. Certain partnerships have developed from people who were initially involved in the park. We've got onto other business, and what's kind of happened, as I see it, the park has gone kind of on the back burner and hasn't been in the forefront of our concentration and working on getting this resolved. What I wanted to do tonight, first of all, is refocus Mayor and Council and staff back onto the Park of Commerce so that we can move forward on this if Mayor and Council decides that's what we're going to do, which we'll get into that discussion. So I wanted to refocus to move this forward. There's a few things that I will refocus the council on because we've had some changes. We've sold some pieces out. We wanted a piece for a substation, so that's kind of changed a little bit of the acreage, so it's been a moving target. So I want to set that tonight, what we have, what is available, then talk a little bit about our strategy here in terms of what Mayor and Council wants, so it's guidance for staff on where we move forward. And we invited people here tonight that have interest, whether or not you're making an offer for the park or you're interested in hearing what's going on about the park, so that you will hear the latest, as I'm hearing it, of what direction the council wants staff to move in regards to the Park of Commerce. Once we do that and we go through these comments and take questions from the council, make sure that we've gotten onto the same page here and refocused ourselves toward the end of the meeting, then we will make available people who are interested in the park to come up, make comments in front of council. I think it'd be good if you are intending on being participating, whatever, that council sees who you are. Here's at least initially some initial statements from you if you're interested. And at that point, depending on what the guidance from council will be, we'll either be discussing this later or moving forward later. They'll give me the guidance to do that. But you have tonight to also refocus on the park. Where are we if it's been a moving target for you or it's been out of your sights for a little bit, and everybody bring back everybody to refocus, and we plan on moving forward as quickly as possible and as quickly as possible. So with that being said, I'll just start first of all exactly what we have for sale out at the park. Of course, without the official survey, once pieces have been sold, we are saying we have 126 available acres there, plus or minus, and when we get into a real deal, of course, it'll be surveyed and verified. However, from that 126 available, the city wants to retain 3 acres for a substation, electric substation, so that we can serve, or better serve, the growth that we're having out on the east side of the city. And we looked around for different parcels as opposed to the Park of Commerce, but the prices of land out there, if y'all have been working out there, certainly know what that is. So we have land, and we determined that we would use approximately 3 acres. The general site for that, if you will look up at the kind of the middle of your, I'll turn this around for a minute for council and then I'll put it back to the audience. We're looking at this corner.
Excuse me, Kurt, I need you to use your microphone.
Okay, we're looking at the corner where I'm going to point my finger. For the audience, it's up in this portion of the park. So therefore, that would make available 123 acres. And these are net acres. There's a 17-acre lake there that is not included in that acreage in terms of what's for sale. And we have 25 acres, I believe. It is included. Oh, in yours, yeah. I don't think so. Okay. So we have the 123 net acres available for sale. As you saw the map, and the one that was handed out to you, the red hashed area does indicate that land which is still for sale. The green and white areas are land that's already been sold and not available for sale. Okay, with that being said,
Kurt, before you go forward from that point, have our people identified the locations of the necessary easements to bring in the lines that are going to go in and out of our substation? I know we have access from the north, but have we identified potential easements across some of this property that would potentially be sold?
147th Avenue, but go ahead, Mike. Mike's done the easement. Check.
Mr. Lazar, council members, actually we have a right of way.
I see here for 147th, and that's all that would be necessary?
Yeah, that's all what we need.
Okay.
All right. Now, once we have what we're looking at to sell, we also have the question, and what our strategy has been, to sell the park as a block, one block of land, 123 acres, or whether we should break up that 123 acres into separate parcels. Many people have come and say, I want 1 acre, I want 2.5 acres, and we have not, actually we've turned people away saying that our past strategy is we want to sell this in a block. And the reason, and I still believe in doing that, just from my perspective, I still think we should do that. One is selling it in these, parceling it out would require me really to have to hire someone, would be becoming a developer per se, to do something that we don't have the expertise on in-house right now to do. We'd have to hire someone to do that. And to monitor it, I think that it will take a period of time, possibly. Our strategy in the past, and which I still recommend, is to move forward in selling it as a block. That's from my perspective. Of course, whatever council wants to do on that, mayor and council want to do on that. But my recommendation, we move forward selling it as a block. I think the city will get its money up front and quickly, put it on the tax rolls quickly. It will abate a lot of time and effort and extra expense, quite frankly, to manage the development of those parcels. Now, the other counter side of that is that if we did sell it parcel-wise, we would probably make more money at the end by selling it in parcels. That definitely could happen. We would get more money doing it that way. I don't know, as we take the present value of money between what we do now and how long it would take us to do that, plus some extra expense of doing that and time for staff, whether or not we'd come out ahead at the end. That would be a very hard calculation to make, I think, at this time. But that's been the strategy, and that's what I see moving forward without further guidance different from council. So that was the second point that we wanted to make on the Park of Commerce as we start talking about it. I don't know if there's any comments at this time on that part. If not, we'll go on to 3. Having said that, we do have Mr. Martinez, and At the end, you can comment, Roman, on what you want to do. Roman has been a bidder on the whole parcel. However, he has come to us and asked that if we cut 20 acres out so that he can start some development immediately for a number of reasons for Roman, which he can talk about, but he feels a necessity. He still wants to be in for the whole park, but yet if it's going to be more time-consuming before we make a decision on the park, he would like to have 20 acres cut so he can move forward with this project, which part of it is tied into our CDBG grant for the fiber optic ring and the creation of jobs. Roman indicated that this would assist in making sure he creates those jobs in the time frame that he's required to do that. So that is another issue that we can talk about at whatever time you want to take that issue, but Roman's prepared to make his presentation on that. I think we've had a number of people, as you see, of interest, at least here in the park, and we made some phone calls to people who had contacted us so they can hear what's going on with the park. We have about four offers in writing to us. The remainder have not submitted offers in writing at this time. Just for the record, in this, we have talked with our attorneys and Dave Wolpin, and it does not require an RFP on this, okay? Which again will be more time consuming. If we were going to do that, we could have done that earlier, which we did with the Rockefeller Group, but it does not require an RFP. It can be done. We can do it by the bids, or you could select someone for me to negotiate. So we're pretty wide open as to what methodology that you could use to move forward on this. And then again, I think that, and maybe even for the benefit of the people sitting out there, some of the favorable criteria, what would the city be looking at or looking for, or what would be positive for the city in selling the Park of Commerce, or what would they get out of it? One, of course, would be price. That's always talks loudly, would be the price, but it's not the only one. We're not looking at financing for anyone. We're looking at an all-cash deal. We're also looking for development. We want development. I think it would be to an advantage to anyone interested in the park that says, yeah, we're buying the park and we're going to build this much immediately. And I think those are three criteria. Of course, no land banking. We're not interested in that particularly. We want to get development out there. So anyone that says, look, I want to buy this park, but I'm going to develop it in 15 years, we're really not interested. Let me put it this way. It doesn't eliminate you, but it's not one of the favorable criteria that we would look at. That would be a negative for us. So, and I don't know if council has any other criteria that they may be looking at for the benefit of people who are here, but again, those were some of the brief questions we wanted to go over and discuss and refocus ourselves on the Park of Commerce. And at this time, I'll be quiet and listen to any questions or any further discussion, or we can have presentations as well.
Any questions from council? Vice Mayor?
How old is the current appraisal on the Park of Commerce?
That was 2 years old. We have one in process right now that our appraiser is working on. He had to do some more work on that, on the appraisal.
When is that going to be available?
It could be as much as 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
Question. Can you move that easel?
Yes. Okay.
Are you going to ask a question, Mr. Porter?
No, I just wanted to see everybody.
I had a question about the appraisal as well. Are they just doing an update on the appraisal, Kurt, or they're not doing a whole full-scale appraisal?
Well, actually, it's going to be another
Really?
appraisal. Yes.
Really? Okay. For what reason do we do that? Because
well,
usually they can go back in there.
It had been some time and it had staled, so we figured that.
So you just did you get a different appraiser this time?
Yes, we did.
Okay. I'm sure that's probably an even better reason then. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Now, how many do we have here this evening that will be making a presentation? Okay, Roman, we'll start with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Well, as Court said...
Excuse me, may we have your name and address for the record? Thank you.
My name is Roman Martinez. I'm from Latam Smart Park. As Court said, we've been working together with the city trying to develop a fiber optic ring with the city as a partner and a park for some years now. In 2001, the city went to the Community Development Block Grant and made an application for a grant to build a fiber optic ring in the city. It was submitted after being reviewed by Council on December 12, 2001. In the grant, the business plan inside the grant, and I could give you a copy of it, specifies that we were doing this to build a telecommunication complex in a strategic partnership with the city and to support the following at the Commerce Park. A business zone covering 60 acres geared toward the development of office and e-business. A light manufacturing and warehouse zone with smart buildings for over 45 acres. Community services covering over 35 acres. And some other areas that were to be decided. This was given to Council and approved back in 2001. Since 2001, I made countless offers to the city to facilitate the building of this area. I went to Rockefeller several times, and Curtis attests of this, and offered to buy the parcels from them, and they kindly suggested that I relocate to Miramar. Since then, and when Rockefeller left, I've been adamant about building the park because I am of the belief that any city, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna quote you a newspaper that this newspaper is called Latam Weekly Financial Report. It was published in Miami and had 40,000 copies of circulation around Latin America, and I was the publisher and editor. In an issue in August 17, 1997, when I spoke about development of cities, and let me quote, "Cities can no longer be seen just as places where people live and government provide services, but as dynamic areas for economic, social, and cultural development. Bureaucracy can no longer be excused behind inefficiency in local governments. Cities are in charge of growth of their city." I'm a proponent that effort between the private sector and the city is essential for a city to prosper. I believe in win-win situations. As Court said, we have made an offer to begin construction immediately on 20 acres. There are several reasons for that. We have to create certain number of jobs according to our grant. The fiber optic ring that the grant was created for has been completed for now 6 months, but we cannot build any services which represent income from both my company and the city because there's no buildings to provide service to. I went ahead and, according to the requirements of the grant, invested over $3.5 million on a building by the Park of Commerce. I bought the land from the city, and you know, you're all welcome to tour the building at your convenience. If we are right, we were being held off by a DERM inspection that Court was kindly enough to help me get rid of in the past week. Also, I bought something for you, which is the Broadband Properties magazine from December 2004. This has two things that I like to use to see. When we began on this project, there were 3 communities in the United States that have fiber optic rings. As of December, there's 200 plus. There's a comparison on page 10. I'm going to leave you the magazine so you guys can see it. The comparison between 2 sister cities in Iowa that had the exact type of population, the exact type of services, but only one difference. One had a fiber ring and a fiber industry, and the other one didn't have it. The comparison shows that the one that had the fiber ring in their office parks had 45% higher leasing prices, and I had on almost 100% leasing of their spaces compared to the other city. And there's several conclusions on how this was done, and the magazine concludes that in every place in the United States where there has been fiber, there's wealth created and jobs created in those specific areas. I thought about bringing a whole map and building locations and building designs. I've done that in the past. It's been documented over the press. When we began construction of the building, some of you were there, I brought drawings and I brought the building designs and everything for you to see and for the press to see over a year and a half ago. I didn't feel I wanted to do that now. I just want to make sure that we understand that the city needs revenue sources. Residential alone will not maintain the city 5 years from now. The city needs commercial office space, not only as revenue basis, but as places for its own citizens to work and to be productive. Homestead cannot become a bedroom community. It is our task to make sure it doesn't happen. Thank you.
Any questions for Ramon?
Yes.
For Vice Chair?
Thank you. Well, when you first started speaking, you talked about 60 acres, but you say do you want all of it? You want 60 acres? What exactly do you want?
We would like to have all of it if possible. What I came to the conclusion is that since we had spent so much time waiting for this, I was going to begin building 20 acres, if you guys allow me, because that will produce the type of result that I want you guys to see. As a personal note, I have already received 9 offers for my building. I'm sure that we can create an area coupled with and I forgot to mention that, I'm sorry Mike, I forgot to mention the foreign trade zone. The Vision Council granted me the management of the Vision Foreign Trade Zone back in August. The benefits for warehousing and distribution towards Latin America, when you couple e-commerce and technology with the foreign trade zone, are enormous.
I want to say, you're saying e-commerce.
E-commerce.
Okay, thank you.
E-commerce. I mean, from a practical standpoint, and let me quantify why I say this. My family has been in the import-export business in tax-free zones around the world since I was born. We have businesses in the Canary Islands in Spain and in Margarita Island, Venezuela, which are both tax-free zones. The benefits of having a website linked to a real-time inventory of your distribution saves you a lot of money. I'll give you an example. Amazon currently sells over $600 million to Latin America. They import about 75% of all their wares. The import duties are anywhere from 7 to 14.5% in some cotton items. By just bringing those into Homestead and providing their not even their main websites, but their backup warehouse and services from Homestead to Latin America, they will save close to $200 million a year. We could publicize those type of numbers to these type of companies. As a matter of fact, we will. One of our first things that we're going to do in our building is that I built a 20,000 square foot warehouse in the first floor and the telecommunications on the second floor to do an export business geared towards Latin America for our own products. We have now clients in 16 countries in Latin America, and we're going to do exactly that. So you guys know Homestead has been featured because of this in several magazines around the world. If you Google Latam or Park or Commerce or Homestead together, you'll find articles in Chinese. We are seen as a model of what growth should be. And my frustration comes because that we're falling behind to people that didn't dream of the concept when we began. And that's my greatest frustration right now. When I see this magazine that I showed you a minute ago, and I see 200 plus farmer communities, when we began, when there were only 3 in the United States, and we are not completed, it's really frustrating. When I know that Myanmar and Palm Beach are beginning their adaptations of the parks with fiber optics, frustrates me because we lose competitive advantage. So if we wait even 6 months, I think we're going to lose to those other communities. So that's the reason why I'm pushing for this.
Thank you. Is it Ramon or
Yeah.
Roman? Ramon?
Either way.
Okay. What's the name of that magazine, first of all? I want to look that up. And the name of the magazine you were reading from?
I'll leave it for you guys. It's called Broadband Communities.
Okay.
And
He's not been in prison.
here's a copy. I'm going to leave it to this day.
Okay. Also, I want to know, for the general public, I know you said that you wanted to build, thank you, you wanted to build a building that would house your import-export business, correct?
It's already built.
Oh, it's already built. That's built on the other property.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to buy 3.5 acres from the city about a year and a half ago with the promise that I was going to build, and I did immediately.
And what are you going to build if this is granted?
At the beginning, we're going to be warehouses in this particular 20 acres. If we go for the whole park, we're going to build offices, warehouses, and some necessary buildings to accommodate the necessities of the whole commerce area.
Would you be building all of these structures yourself, or would you be using our local architects, our local contractors, our local...
I'm sure that I would like to use a lot of the resources in town. I have already spoken to, for instance, Pinky about the field, and yes, I will use local resources whenever I can.
And how many people do you think that, if you were granted this, that you would employ?
Well, the thing is, there's a trigonometry, it's a pyramid. For every job created that is directly associated with the building, there's another 5 jobs that are indirectly created. And if we are successful in bringing the type of growth I foresee into this community in the commercial level, we're talking about thousands of jobs.
The reason I'm asking these questions is that I did Google this morning, and I did go, online, and I pulled up several cities, one being Boca Raton, starting their Park of Commerce, in the city of Eustis and the city of Sarasota, and I see a great diversity in theirs. I mean, I didn't bring everything with me tonight, but I found a diversity in their plan. So I guess I'm asking you is, are you willing to sell off portions of that property or lease out sections of that property for others to build on if they had something that could contribute to the city?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody that knows me in this room knows that I like to win. I like win-win relationships in everything that I do. As a matter of fact, even on the 20 acres of land that I'm planning to buy from you guys, if you guys allow me, I went to the city and inquired what was the highest price that you were offered by anyone for the land, and I betted it.
Well,
So I like win-win relationships, and I don't think that it's my role to create this whole thing by myself. I will invite other people into. I have already invited several groups to join me in the development of the group, but based on the same rationale and based on the same structure of buildings that will first that will begin now, but will be built with the needs for 20 years from now.
And one last question, because I mean we're here to listen to everybody, and I have never met you before, so
yes,
I need to ask you.
Unfortunately, I tried making an introductory meeting with you last month. My fault. I just couldn't make it.
That's okay. Financially, are you able to move forward?
Yes, as I did when I began this project, I am prepared to buy the land in cash and build, and I have proved it with letters of credit before to the city that have the funds to do it. And the best testament to it is that I have already invested over $7 million in the city since I first began here.
Thank you.
Question, ma'am?
Amanda?
Just one question. If you were to assume the whole property, how long do you think it would take before it was completely built out?
Well, I wish it is as soon as possible. What we'll do is we'll begin. There's several things that now that I have experience building in the area, I know that there are delays that are totally out of your controls. For instance, over the summer we were delayed 4 months in one building because of 3 hurricanes. Then we were delayed another month and a half because FP&L didn't have lines in place. Then we were delayed another 2 months because there were no sewer lines in place. So if we assume that those delays are going to be there, we will have enough places for people to work and do their warehousing as soon as possible. We won't pre-sell. We'll build an office building right away if we get the office side. We will build warehouses right away. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to pre-sell the warehouses. I have clients already. So yes, I mean we're planning to begin right away, and as I was asked before, I will accommodate anybody else that has a business that it's geared towards making the city a better city. I mean, this is just a very large project, and I'm undertaking it as a group because I believe it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Ramon. Mr.
Well, in the beginning of your remarks, you alluded to the grant that the city obtained to do the fiber optic ring, and I think that was awarded based upon your ability to get it installed and up and running. And I guess my assumption has always been, and correct me if I'm wrong because it's kind of a foundation for my question, is that the building that you are substantially completed with at this point, that was your operations building for the fiber optic ring, is that correct?
No, I bought a teleport in town if my building wasn't ready on time. Okay. The teleport is located at 261 Parkway. And as a matter of fact, the second floor of the new building, it's a much better facility. But I didn't have the luxury to know whether I was going to have it ready or not, so I went ahead and bought another building.
Well, I guess my point is that under the grant, the grant of the federal funding to do the fiber optic ring, certain milestones have to be met. So my question then to you is if we do not sell you the 20 acres, does that preclude you from meeting the milestones that have been set forth in the grant? I mean, because what I'm looking at,
well,
the city's got some.
Yeah, I just put another question to you. If you had a hot dog cart and you were locked in a closed room, will you sell hot dogs? I mean, if I have no buildings to service, because I've been shut out, I've been shut out providing service to some other parts of the cities by other interests. If I if I had nowhere to sell my services, it is impossible to sell services. According to the grant, I have in my letter, I have 2 years to create 22 jobs, and I'm willing to create them right away. I had this discussion a few days ago with George, but bottom line is that I believe that we need the 20 acres, not only because we're going to create these 22 jobs, we're going to create more, but it's essential for the city in order to create wealth, which is the point that I'm trying to make. It's not about me. It's about creating wealth for the city for not only 2005, but to create a city that will be prosperous in 10 years.
I just want to clarify though, but in order to meet the requirements of the grant, you believe that it's necessary to have that 20 acres to create a customer base?
Well, I mean, it was in the business plan that you all approved when we got the grant.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Ramon, and your offer, what is your official offer for the park?
For the whole park, $276 an acre. $276 a foot. A square foot.
An acre, so.
200,000.
Thank you, Ramon. The next presenter? There was a gentleman in the back there. Next presenter?
That's 120,000 an acre. Yeah, 120,000 an acre. Sorry. If we approve the business plan.
It's 120,000.
Over that. It's a little over that, isn't it?
Thank you.
It's 120.
122.25.
What is it, Joe?
It says 122.25, 60.
Before he present, could you give your name and the name of your company to the clerk so I can call you up for the next presentation? Sharon, would you get the...
Yes, sir. Thank you. Now we know who I am.
Anybody else?
I'm Shelley, okay.
Good evening. My name is Robert Shelley. Company is Shelley Real Estate. I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come here this evening. We are excited about the Park of Commerce. Sounds like Ramon was also excited about the Park of Commerce. I'm actually excited to hear some of the stuff that he said, especially about the fiber optics, which I was not aware of at this time. But I definitely think he was correct about a lot of things, and I think the timing is right for the park to be developed and used correctly. We provided you some renderings and some ideas that we have on it. We believe that with the growth of the homes and all the building that's been going on, especially when you drive down the turnpike, the Park of Commerce could come into something as a Tamiami Airport area, where you've got a lot of small warehouse, some end users, some light manufacturing. With the fiber optics there now, it kind of opens up a little bit more of the office or flex type space. I believe with the right plan, obviously it can be done correctly. We have already gone out and looked and sent some feelers out, and we spoke with Mike Hendricks of Southeast Properties. We would like to retain him if we do wind up purchasing it as our broker to sell it, to list it, to lease it. Some of it will obviously be sold off to end users. Some of it will be built ourselves. Our idea is to come in and start off with small warehouses, 1,000 square foot bays, maybe 2,000 square foot bays. The product that has worked well around the Tamiami Airport area, something that can be an end user as a electrician, a plumber, a pool service, maybe even a small business starting up that just needs an industrial space, obviously construction, etc. We'll one of the questions you asked before, we are not actual builders. We would be the contractors, and we would sub out the work to individuals around here or whoever we could get to do the work. But basically, we think it's a great area. We think it's time. I know I've driven by there several times because I've had several container boats and gone down to the factory, and every time I drove by, I kind of wondered, why anything else wasn't going in there. But if you guys have any questions, we'll be glad to answer it. We have submitted a letter of intent to, I believe it was Kurt Ivey. I believe he has it. We are prepared to move forward as soon as possible. We feel that sooner the better. Time frames was one of the questions you asked before. Realistically, to fill the entire park, we feel it would be about a 4-year process. Approximately off the start, we're looking to do in the first 2 years about 50 acres of immediate construction on the acreage. We feel that we can pretty much come in the first year and get enough going on 50 acres of it that obviously won't be finished with the construction, but at least the process will be started. That's basically it. There's also some resumes and stuff that we've done in the past and properties we own and current projects we're working on that we provided to you. And obviously any questions you have, I'll be glad to answer.
Questions? Steve?
Well, I guess, we're here, and the dollars and prices were made public from Roman Martinez, and I would ask the manager, was there, they're saying there's a letter of intent from Mr. Shelley's group, did that include a potential purchase price?
Yes, it did.
And that was?
$120,000 an acre.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? 120,000 acre 4-year projected build out.
123 acres.
123.
Correct. And again, we are extremely excited about this, and we're prepared to move as soon as possible. And if we need to provide you with any forms of financial information, we'd be glad to do that. Obviously, we understand it's obviously a cash offer. Typically, these things, we've done a lot of deals in real estate. It's contingent upon obviously title and environmental, and usually that's about it. And I think Kurt Ivey's actually provided some of that stuff to us already. So,
Vice Mayor.
Just a comment. I'm glad we're here tonight. I want to hear all the proposals. I want to see what everybody has in mind for the park. I'm really interested in that. But I think that here we are again, sitting down, discussing something where we really don't even have an accurate appraisal on the property. So we're going to hold off, I'm sure, on any absolute price until we get the current appraisal.
Well, that's correct. But we have a good idea. Again, I guess to say
it's the same one that's been doing our appraisals. I'm not really thrilled with.
I understand.
Okay.
A different person, right?
Well, from the last time at the park, I'm reading what
you're reading me very well.
It's the same. But again, I think on pricing, which it's awkward for everybody, especially if it's not completed yet. Again, more is better concept, and we have a good picture about what it's worth there, I think. So, and we can talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Homestead Commerce Group.
That's what we need. We need more paper.
No, thank you.
Did I write on yours? Is this yours? Is this what you're giving out? I think this is yours, though. Is it a personal one?
That's the same one, Adam. That's the same.
Okay. I think I'll be his handwritten one.
Oh, that was, yeah, my notes.
Got enough, we can share.
Don't have another page.
That one too.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Robert Zenzel. I was one of the guys Mr. Ivy talked about at the beginning that was turned away. I probably came down the first time maybe a year and a half ago, and then I've been coming back, and what I've done now is put together a group of local businesses, local guys in Miami, a lot of Miami natives that want to actually get together with our group and purchase land and start building the buildings. We have Adam Bass, who's a developer. Well, he just he does office buildings in Homestead, and Raul Moss is a boat builder, and he's over here. He's Guy Cafe is the president of a management company. Guy also has a race car engineering firm that he does vintage race cars for museums. Ken Cummings is here. He's a civil engineer, and he was involved in the villages of Homestead in the 1970s. He did the DRI? Yeah, I'm not a developer, so I don't know some of the terminations. Robert Lundgren. Rob is the president, the CFO of Palmer Trinity. John Franzak is, he represents some NASCAR teams. He's a friend of ours from being around the track, and he's come down here to represent a smaller team that might want to do a shop here. Jim Kahn is the president of Apple Financial, and he does financial services. He wants to build an office building. Chip Huffman, who's not here, has an import-export firm, and he's interested in the free trade zone aspect of the business, which we don't know much about yet, but we'd like to learn about what that is all about. And there's additional companies that didn't want to come tonight because of employee things. Some guys are at the Tamiami Airport area, and the traffic is getting bad. They want to come down here. Some of the guys actually live down here. A couple of guys live in the Redlands, and we have a guy who lives in Ocean Reef that wants to build a building, but didn't want his name known yet. So what we're proposing, and Guy Cape is he's kind of the developer of this, helping us develop it, not selling the land, but helping us develop it. So, and then Adam, I guess Adam, you'll talk first. Adam will tell you the background of who some of the guys are here, if you want to come up.
I look around and I don't get to come up to the council
Excuse me, may we have your name for the record?
What's that?
May we have your name for the record?
Yeah, I was going to get to it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Adam Bass. I live at 1262 Southfield Lark Lane. I grew up in Homestead. I've lived here all my life. I guess if I come to these meetings with all you fancy guys, I got to start dressing better.
Get along around here, coming overalls.
We build, chief and council members, we build high-quality commercial office buildings. We have several of them in the Homestead area within a mile of this facility right here. I raised my boys here. I too, like Mr. Martinez, have been trying to buy a piece of land in the park for a long time. But it's probably a good thing that stuff got mired for a while, because the city will realize the true value of the land. Had it been easily accessible a few years ago, we being the city, would have never, would have been sold off, and we would have lost out on that benefit. Bob called me up not too long ago, about a week or two ago, and he said that he had heard my name around town and that we were interested in purchasing a parcel out there to do a high-quality office building, and that he had a group of other folks who were interested in immediately starting to build quality facilities, move their businesses there, create jobs and whatnot. and would I be interested in joining up with them and being a part of that? And I said, sure. So here you have, I heard Mr. Martinez speak very well, and I know he's committed money to the area. I know we've committed money to the area. And it sounds like there's a lot of guys in this room who are serious about starting immediately building high-quality buildings, bringing jobs either by bringing their own staff to the area or by hiring local people. I know our spec buildings bring in a lot of different businesses. And I don't see why, to use his words, we can't have a win-win situation when you have this large a pie and you have this many people who are interested in a slice, why it can't be divided up in a fair manner and sold off to those small businesses, each of which will commit to building, investing in the area, creating something that's on the tax rolls that puts no burden on the school system and creates the jobs that the community needs. So I think it's wonderful that, it took a long time. People were complaining about it. I was complaining about it, saying, hey, how come I can't get a slice of that? But now that we're here at this point, I think it's a great opportunity to move forward. Let me see if I have any other notes to share with you. That's about it. We would commit right away to creating a certain, building a certain number of square feet and immediately bringing in those businesses. We can give you the names of the businesses, the references, and the histories of them, and it's not some pie-in-the-sky thing. And you can drive down Chrome, you can drive down 15th Street, see my offices, and you're welcome to go and talk to anybody there and see what kind of landlord we are. Is there anything else you wanted me to talk about? Or?
No, Guy.
Okay. Other than that, are there any questions? Anybody on the council or chief, you have any questions? Anybody?
I'd like to know the price.
I'm sorry?
The price you're offering?
Well, I think Mr. Martinez offered $276 a square foot, so I'm going to come in at $277 a square foot. Now, there's absolutely no reason, as you said, that this can't be a win-win. And frankly, we could have an auction if I had one of these things. We could have an auction right now, pending Ms. Bell's appraisal. But seriously, there's no reason that everybody shouldn't be able to participate and pay a fair price to the city. Not anybody coming in lowballing it. No, nobody excluded. Because that way everybody will commit to building right away. Because one guy doesn't have control. Where, hey, now I can land bank it, and everybody's got to go through me. All right. Thank you for your time, everybody. And by the way, I voted for every single one of you.
All right, you win. So could we add to the price? So, Mr. Bass, we'll add to your price as a result of it.
My name is Guy Caith. I am from Miami, South Miami, Coral Gables, and even though I did not grow up in Homestead, I've spent quite a bit of my life coming here, owning land in South Dade with my family, farmland, residential land also. When Bob called me, I've known Bob for 30 years. When Bob called me about this about 2 years ago, about this property, I was wondering why people couldn't just come in and buy a lot. Now I understand in more detail. One of the things that we saw was that, or he saw, is that he needed to bring together a group of people that would give comfort to the city that whatever development was done there, it would be done in keeping with what the plan was made for the property, and I would assume trying to keep with the plan that was come up with 30 years ago. At that time, I was young, but I had met Ken Cummins, and he was involved with the Hudson Bay Company, their division that came down here that was involved with the original creation of the village as a homestead. By bringing people like Ken and some of the other folks in our group, we wanted to make sure that we could present a very professional, managed group to you, so we didn't have just a little odds and ends of a 1 acre here and a 5 acre here and everybody doing something widely different and reducing the quality of the project. The companies that we have proposed initially to bring forward are a wide range of companies. You have from a suit here and a man behind him who builds boats. Even though I have my coat on, my company spends in my spare time working on cars, not being just a mechanic, but trying to go ahead and make these make very high quality showroom cars for displays at events around the world. I've been coming down to the track since it opened and looking at the land nearby, wondering what would be done with it. Now that there is a chance to do something, our company has offered as being part of the group, not as a developer to come in and buy the property and to sell to other people, but our company has offered to help bring the services needed to this group. So you could have a boat builder, you could have an office building developer, you could have an import-export company come together and buy the whole property if it needed to be bought. Frankly, to develop 126 acres and build it out, that is quite a task. It would take many years to attract all the users. There are a lot of pie-in-the-sky projections you can do. Back in 1983, we were involved in a project which is on the south side of the Miami International Airport. There's about 200 acres of land there. It has the Hilton Hotel. It has the Sofitel, has many office buildings. It has the Burger King headquarters. A project was started in 1981, and here we are these many years later, and it's finally getting built up to that level, and there's still quite a bit of land left in the Waterford project to complete it. The reason that project is very successful is the people in the beginning of the project committed to quality, committed to fiber optics. In fact, at that time, the very first fiber optics installed in the county, 2 commercial properties were installed on that property to great expense to our own company. But nowadays, the whole community reaps the benefits of those improvements that were done on the property at that time. Some of the companies that Bob had mentioned range, well, in our group, the buildings that we would propose to start immediately. And when I say immediately, everybody, go get a building permit and get going. But realistically, you would be looking at something within 1 year. From the time to finish planning, not have the benefit to have plans already like you do, but to get the plans done and get a building permit. We are talking about 125,000 square feet of buildings that range from warehouse use to manufacturing to pure office use. Some of those uses could use the fiber optic, I can tell you that. And I understand you can get telephone and all the other things normally anyway, but one of the businesses who's not here tonight, they do online inventory management, and they do need to tell their customers around the world what they have. What I wanted to do was ask Raul Mas from the boat building company just to give you a quick indication of what his company, instead of having us all come up and say, hey, this is what we do, was going to have Raul, he's on one end of the spectrum doing manufacturing, and then have Jim Kahn from the Apple Financial to give you an idea of what he would do as a sample of each of the buildings. In talking about price and timing, we are not looking to go ahead and steal a piece of land or get some great bargain. What we've been wanting to do is to come to the southern part of the county with our facilities for the same reasons why people typically locate, and we know from years of experience, locate their offices and locate their businesses.
The owners, managers, or the bulk of the employees of those businesses generally live in the community where those businesses are located. With myself and with these other gentlemen, either they live in South Dade, they want to move to South Dade, or they live in the Keys, and they want to go ahead and work near where they live. So it's essentially a very simple grassroots effort to try to buy parcels of land from you, but since, as the manager had mentioned, it's probably not feasible for you to set up a real estate office and sell lots. We're willing to do that. We're willing to sell to other people if we have to. If we have to buy all the land and hold on to it to sell to them, we're willing to do that also. We are not interested in controlling a piece of land and then putting up a big expensive toll gate to say, okay, you want to come here, now go ahead and dance for us. We are more interested in bringing our businesses. If we got to buy the land, that's fine, we'll do it. Why? Because we believe if whatever excess land we buy, this community is going to grow. Ken Cummins, some of the plans that he worked on years ago are now bearing fruit, as you see out there. I believed in it back when I was a teenager in the 70s, and I believe in it now, and I'm willing to bring my business down here to the city of Homestead and to bring the jobs along with it. The number of jobs initially in our group, they number about 125 up to about 150 in the initial startup situation. And it would be divided if the additional companies that have talked to us that would like to come here, we could possibly double that. But if we had to sign a contract to say we're going to commit to this amount of square footage and we're going to realistically commit to this amount of jobs, we couldn't state it higher than that. It would be unfair to you all. Raul, if you could come up and give a word about your company. Raul's company is based up in Hialeah. This would be a relocation to the city of Homestead.
Good evening. My name is Raul Mas. I'm with Man of War Boat Works, and like Guy said, we're in Hialeah right now. We manufacture small boats. We also manufacture boat parts for other companies, and we manufacture a boat for a full boat for another company that's out of the city of Miami. We're looking to relocate down to Miami. After looking at many different parts of Dade County, we felt that the city of Homestead was an excellent location for what we were looking for, simply because of the location that it has, the amount of the labor pool that there is down here, and the amount of people that are moving down here on a regular basis would create a tremendous amount of people for us to be able to hire jobs. We would instantly be able to bring anywhere between 25 to 35 jobs immediately as soon as the facility was completed. We'd be looking at building a facility of approximately 40,000 square feet, and with room for expansion after that. And I think as the city of Homestead has seen, there's a number of other boat builders down here in Homestead, and I think they've created quite a number of jobs for the city of Homestead, and I think we would do the same.
Hello there. Jim Kahn from Apple Financial. I own a company that provides financial services to hospitals throughout Dade County, Fort Lauderdale. We're located in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we have offices in Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. And I see a great opportunity for my company to relocate and make this our corporate headquarters here in Homestead. I see great promise. I'm also a homeowner here. I live in the Redlands. I've been in Dade County for 17 years, and I've always loved the Homestead area. And I see great attraction when I bring clients from, say, Maryland to come down and see one of our projects at Mercy Hospital or at one up in Fort Lauderdale Holy Cross Hospital, to actually bring them here and show them what we have to offer in the Homestead area. And with me relocating and making this our corporate headquarters, we're going to be bringing people from different parts of the country here. And when they're freezing right now up in Maryland, they're having a snowstorm, I think of no better place to be than deep sea fishing and being here in Miami and Homestead area. So again, we have right now currently with all of our employees close to 100. Currently here in the state of Florida we have 50. And we have great growth. And I'd just like to be a part of the Homestead area, and I think my company and Homestead would be a great fix. Along with the other small business owners that have already spoken, I see that there's great passion to be here, and it seems that there is a lot of land that could be divided through different organizations that everyone can meet their needs. Me personally, I could benefit by, again, bringing different ideas into this community and sharing those ideas with other companies. And again, I look forward to actually one day building my own building that I can call corporate headquarters instead of currently where we lease. We have 6 different leases. We don't own any property. So I think this is a great opportunity again for my own company to finally own a piece of property that we can call our own and build from that. I thank you very much, and I did vote for you also.
Be careful, that might make some question your judgment.
Are there any questions?
Questions? Questions?
Is it possible for us to ask questions?
Sure.
I am not as familiar with some of the procedures here and some of the things either to do an auction or RFP, so on. I think we'd like to know what are some of the steps we would need to take. As my role of managing the group, it would be something to help translate to some of these people, look, this is what you need to do. If there's going to be, do we go to additional meetings? Do we call on you all? Is there something going to be published? Where does this go from here? Or is that something you maybe will decide in the next 10 minutes or the next days or something?
Well, this is a workshop this evening. So after all of the presentations, the council will have a discussion and probably give the manager some direction. I think the Vice Mayor already alluded to the need for the appraisal of the property. Yes. So I'm sure that would probably one instrument that we'll need before we would probably give any final direction to the manager, but that's to be determined after the presentation. You'll be in a position to listen to the conversation and the direction we give the manager at some point.
Now, will we be contacted, or do we have to call Mr. Ivy continuously and hassle him?
Why be different from anyone else? No, actually, I'm just joking. Again, as we move forward here and kind of a direction reestablished here for myself and the staff, you've signed up here. You also were called to be here.
Yes.
So we definitely will be able to communicate. We'll communicate with you when events are happening. Of course, on our website, we've got our schedules of our meetings and agendas and those things on there. But we're not going to try and slip anything through anyone, but we'll help notify people of interest. And if you want to be notified yourself, I just had the initial, some of them were just phone messages with people, yes, and others were letters of intent.
All right, well, thanks for your time.
I have one question.
Oops, sorry.
Mayor, may I? Are you, I know you've all come together as a group. Do you have an LLC? Are you all principals?
No.
I mean, how is this, I need to know that. Is it a corporation that you're representing?
We have not put together a formal entity. Part of the problem with doing it, there are some companies that would like to be included in this group. As an example, one, for competitive reasons, if they came to a public forum and their name was stated, it could affect certain contracts that they're involved with.
I understand.
One other company would relocate employees, and even though the company is located in Broward County, if some of the employees found out potentially that the company was going to be relocated before the management of the company put together transfer packages and moving and so on, it would be unfair both to the management and employees. So we decided not to go ahead and put it together, say by percentage, this company with 5 acres, this with 3, this with 10, which is what we would do, basically to go ahead and, if we had to, acquire in total or a substantial piece as a group, we're willing to do that. We were not expecting for you to have to deal with individual companies. We can take care of the detailing and the bookkeeping and so on and the management of that within our own group. A formal proposal or a contract would be signed in the name of most likely probably an LLC, just to make it simple enough. And then after the transactions were done, and then we retransacted the properties to the individual owners, we would retain that entity to do collective property management amongst our buildings. If it ended up we had to acquire the whole property and hold on to some as we marketed it, we're ready. Our company has been involved in quite a few large projects. We're ready to market it under that entity, and then when all the pieces are sold, to go ahead and dissolve that entity. And I mentioned about the timing, this could take many years to get done. So, but that would come to you in a formal entity and something that would be, legally binding, correct? The whole standard routine that you would do.
And I've asked everybody else, so I need to ask you too, financially.
Yes, this is not a problem for us to do. When I was contacted about it, at first I thought that Bob wanted us just to buy the whole site, which would not be a problem, but that wasn't the case, which is actually made me feel better that these companies would want to come together. And our company made the offer to fill in any balance of what the other companies as direct users, immediate users, could not do. We would take care of the balance. And this project, even though 126 is relatively large, to have 123 acres of commercial industrial land is a relatively large project compared to some of the other projects we have done. Not to belittle it, but it is smaller than some of the other projects we have completed or have been involved with. It's not a minor amount of money when you do the math of 276 a square foot by 123 acres. We're in the $14–15 million range. We're prepared to do that, and at the time we would need to provide that proof, we would be able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other presenters? Mr. Ladner.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Councilman. Please forgive me, I'm a little under the weather, so if I lose my voice here, I'll turn it over to Steve Early.
Excuse me, your name for the record?
My name is Michael Ladner, and I'm the general partner at M&H Homestead that has purchased the major portion of Keysgate. And I'm here tonight to explain what our position is and to try to get some movement on a decision. We have been, as you know, bought 75 acres of the park previously and have become deeply immersed in a long-range planning for the park. As a partner with the city under the DRI, we're deeply concerned that the quality of industrial development that occurs in the park enhances the whole community and benefits the city in the long term. We are prepared to work with all of these people should we purchase the park and add some sense to the planning process, and to make sure that anybody that comes into the park that complies with the overall plan at the park. And this has been our thrust all along. We have a vested interest that that park be developed properly for everybody's benefit. We have embarked on a major program in the last 6 months to prepare for the development of the park. We've hired we've joined with a telecommunications expert, and we are planning a state-of-the-art telecommunications system for the residential community at the present time, and are looking at the commercial industrial park as well to bring the same state-of-the-art technology to it. We have hired an architect who has been working with us for the last few months and has come up with some, and we've toured the state and looking at looking at different developments in the residential area that would enhance the industrial park and the rest of the Keysgate community and the city of Homestead. We've also joined forces with a very, very competent industrial park marketer, Comrail, which is run by Steve Smith. He's present here tonight. And he is an integral part of it. He has been involved in long-term planning of industrial parks and doing quality development in the Doral area and other parts of the Dade County and the state. So we have also looked at what's needed to make this industrial park successful, and this includes, and primarily, schools. It includes creating an environment where the people that work and live in the industrial park have a place to go and enhance the day-to-day work day for them. We've looked at the idea of parks, how important that is also to attract employers and companies that come down here. So we're very interested in acquiring the park, but it's driven partly by the fact that we want to make sure that quality development occurs there. Steve Shiver is going to talk to you a little more in depth about it and what we're planning to do. But we would like to make this a part of our settlement agreement, the 1993 agreement. It's a unique opportunity to do that, and this provides a vehicle for which we can accomplish two things at the same time. So with those words, I'd like to turn this over to Steve Shiver, and he can elaborate a little more on what we're planning to do. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Latner at this point, or?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Latner.
Michael, you said quality development, you said schools, and live in industrial park. Do you mean homes or housing inside the industrial park?
No, on the perimeter of the industrial park, so that there can be a place where people can live and even walk to work, where parents can drop off their children at schools and go to work in the park, well, Steve will get into this in a little bit, but so have I answered your question?
Right, because if you get the 123, you already own 75, you're going to have 200 acres out there. So
right.
Essentially, I want to make sure that you're not trying to squeeze in some homes out there.
No, the 123, we are committed to creating a quality industrial park. Okay. And the surrounding area, we are designing a community that will enhance and create a synergism between the two entities, the park itself, the industrial park, and the residential community.
You're talking about the already existing residential community?
Well, no, the surrounding empty land that exists.
Are you referring
in the park?
Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to let up until you tell me exactly. So you're referring to the 75 acres then, which you already own?
Yeah, I'm not trying to mislead you. The 75 acres, Steve is going to present a plan tonight for what we're going to do with the 75 acres.
Okay.
But this is, in addition to the 75 acres, we're talking about the commercial land along Kingman, down along the western boundary of the industrial park. And that's basically it.
Okay, I'll wait for the proposal.
Mayor, I have a question.
Amanda?
Mr. Losner, I know you're working on trying to resolve the 93 agreement. I'm just wondering, are we going to deal with these as two separate issues, or is this going to be entwined in our dealings? I know you're working on that. I don't know where you are, if we're going to solve that first, or we're going to take care of Park of Commerce first, because I hate hearing that when we're trying to talk about something else.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Garner, and council colleagues, I had hoped to make some comments addressing that after Mr. Shiver's presentation. That is the park is a very integral part of our discussions regarding the settlement of the 93 agreement. And I would venture that many of those who have come here tonight in good faith and ready, willing, and able to do business with the city probably don't have a full knowledge and understanding of the depth of where we are with that agreement. And I would ask that, at the conclusion of Mr. Shiver's comments, and without getting into, I'll say this, I feel we are very close in reaching a proposal that we can bring to council for consideration for the settlement of the 93 agreement. And again, it's inextricably intertwined with the disposition of the balance of the Park of Commerce. And we have the appraisal issues, and there are a lot of issues that we have to deal with. So if I might, if the Latner Group is the last presenter tonight, at the conclusion of Mr. Shiver's comments, I'd like to go into more detail about that.
Mr. Shiver?
Thank you. My name's Steve Shiver. I have an office at 47 North Chrome Avenue. I represent M&H Homestead, and both as a part owner in Doug LLC, also as a consultant and real estate development consultant for the company. I think a few things just to set, I guess, the record straight. Back in February, if everybody will recall, we were all, not all of us, but some of us in this room were here discussing the Park of Commerce. And at that time, there were a couple of folks that stood up and talked a little bit about the 93 agreement, namely us, and how to comprehensively settle that. And I know that word makes you cringe when you hear it. But we're trying our best through a process that the mayor established in dealing with Mr. Losner and Mr. Ivey. We're trying our best to make that go away. We just a week ago got an offer from the staff as a preliminary discussion point for us to settle the 93 agreement. We have always considered the Park of Commerce to be a critical portion of the settlement of the 93 agreement. That said, we also, though, realize that the City of Homestead needs to realize a financial windfall, if you will, from the Park of Commerce. We're not looking for a straight-out settlement. You give us the park and we'll give you the 93 agreement. That's not what we're looking for. I want to be very clear in that. I think that the appraisal back 2 years ago, I believe it was Ramon who mentioned, no, I'm sorry, it was Adam Bass who mentioned, luckily we didn't do anything 2 years ago when the appraisal, I think, was $83,000 an acre. If that was done back then, I agree with Adam. The city would have sold it short. I think an updated appraisal is a very valid instrument in this discussion, and also, Mr. Losner, a very valid discussion point or discussion item for us as we negotiate the final agreement for the 1993 settlement. When we purchased the Park of Commerce originally, in the 75 acres, Ms. Bell, Vice Mayor Bell, you asked the question of Mr. Latner, are we considering the residential development within the Park of Commerce? I didn't really say it that bluntly, but that's what you were getting to.
I was pretty blunt.
Okay. Well, in the 123 acres that we're considering or you're discussing tonight, that mainly lies under the AQs. You can't do residential development there if you wanted to. That land area we have committed completely, and Steve Smith, our industrial partner, I'll let him talk to that here in a few moments. That land we have dedicated completely and solely to industrial development. Now, of the 75 acres, 46 is outside the AQs. We already own the entryways. The green areas that were shaded that the manager pointed out earlier, we already own those areas. So 46 acres is all that remains outside the AQs that we have been researching and working with your staff. We've had one of your Mr. Losner looking at a development of similar quality mixed-use development. So in that area, we are proposing a commercial, retail, office, and residential component. So it is not wholesale, no, it is not a subdivision of residential homes, but it is a community concept using urban design criteria that has been espoused around the state and around the country as where people are looking to. I want to quote, if I can, an article, a couple articles, in fact, from the Miami Herald, this one recently, about a month or two ago. I forwarded it to you all promptly. This is from the Miami Herald, and it says, chronic traffic problems and a lack of undeveloped land have prompted Miami-Dade's biggest builder of industrial parks to change gears and focus on urban development. That's the Cadena Group. That's the Cadena Group. In another article, Michael Cannon, who's a real estate analyst who writes for the Miami Herald and a member of the Urban Land Institute, and I think has done work for the city of Homestead in years past, he says, and is quoted, "We're going back to the future. They are creating what we used to have in the 1920s and 30s." And what he's referring to is, I think, very aptly summed in a handout that was given by your development director, Mr. LaPrade, at a Vision Council presentation some time ago. And it talks about the urban sprawl and the problems with that, and bringing back communities that have mixed use where it promotes a pedestrian-friendly environment so that you don't depend so heavily on traffic and on crowding and congesting the roads. And it's adopted by the American Planning Association, and these are guidelines to help communities make smart growth their own. And this is your document from Mr. LaPrade, and it says compact transit, accessible, pedestrian-oriented mixed-use developments. And the comment is, with the adoption of the urban design guidelines that you all have been working on and the allowance of mixed-use developments in many areas of the city, smart growth is happening. So we merely are continuing exactly what you've done in the Southwest Neighborhood Plan. You're looking at infill, you're looking at an industrial component there, you're looking at a residential component there, a shopping corridor, something that is not new to this council and definitely not new more recently to urban design professionals across the country. That being said, when you look at it at an industrial park, and I know that today we're here to talk about the industrial park. Councilwoman Garner, mentioned the combination of the 93 agreement and how that works. As the owner of the majority of the vacant land, not only in the Park of Commerce, but in the DRI, we have got to look not just at 123 acres. It's incumbent upon us, it's actually an obligation of us to our investors that we look at the entire picture of the DRI. Now, in doing that, we must consider schools. You've got to consider parks. You have to consider the availability of commercial land. I've spoken to Adam just actually a little while ago about building a park, an office park. I've seen his developments grow, and I too have grown up here, so we've been knowing each other for quite some time. But I've seen that quality office, and so you've got to have availability. How many times, and I think Mike Richardson was in the audience, and I know the manager, and when I was mayor, how many times have you had people come and call you and say, I need 10,000 feet, I need 5,000 feet, I need 2,500 feet, where can I go? So availability of commercial land and commercial space is absolutely essential when a mom and pop or a corporation looks to relocate or to open a business here in Homestead. And then also housing. When a site selector comes in and he's talking about a big corporation and he wants to, or a mom and pop, and he wants to find a 1-acre parcel or he wants to find a 30-acre parcel for their 250 employee manufacturing facility. They don't look just at the dirt in the confines of the park or in the confines of the industrial component that they're looking at. They look at housing. They look at several qualities that are there. Housing is a very important issue. Parks. You're already working on that, and I'll touch on that in a few seconds. Transportation and infrastructure. And then generally quality of life issues. How many times have we heard the schools are not that good? I mean, we've all heard that here. If you lived here, if you've lived it, we've heard the schools aren't good. We've heard you don't have the workforce. I remember when the Prime Outlet malls was developed. They, in fact, had to get managers for those outlet stores in other areas. And that's a direct correlation to your schools. Now, I say that in a roundabout way to bring up the fact that as a partner, M&H Homestead, Michael Latner in particular, has been working with the City of Homestead on the school issue. In fact, tomorrow is one of the final discussions, and I know the manager and the mayor, and I know Vice Mayor Bell is the education chairwoman who's all worked diligently on this Educational Facilities Benefit District. Tomorrow is the hearing at the county commission level. We as vested partners brought Taylor Smith in as a consultant many, I don't know how long ago it's been, Vice Mayor Bell, 18 months probably. It's been well over a year that we've been talking about schools, and we brought in the consultant. We're working with the development community to really make a difference in schools. The EFBD will, as you know, create over $50 million for developing schools in and around the DRI, and that's, again, our impetus for getting involved in the Educational Facilities Benefit District. Parks. Again, we partnered. Again, M&H Homestead partnered in that we made developers that bought land from us set aside a dollar amount per unit that now is accumulated to $600,000 that we're going to give to the city in development of Humpty Dumpty Park. I know that Dave Beal in our organization, is Dave still here? Dave Beal in our organization is a kind of a development guru and generally a corporate CEO that's working with us and has been working with Marlene Volkert and the city to talk about the park development. And again, you're looking holistically. It's not just about one piece of this puzzle that many sometimes put the blinders on. You have to have a complete or comprehensive approach. The Park of Commerce. When we started to design and look and research at the Park of Commerce and what had been done in the past, I believe I was mayor at the time we brought Rockefeller Group on, and I sat with many of you as they told us what they were going to do. And God bless that we believed that they had the accomplishments, they had the track record, they had the notoriety, they had the name, they had the ability to get it done. We entered into an agreement with them, generally a marketing agreement. And we all know what's happened there. The two tenants that you have there, Silver Eagle, Ramon in the audience tonight, and Contender Boats are there before Rockefeller got involved. And the only other transaction, the only other transaction that took place under the Rockefeller agreement, I believe, was the purchase that we did from Douglas Group, where we acquired the 50 acres. So we have really stepped up to the plate and have put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, in making sure we have a consistent development in and around the DRI and the Park of Commerce. I'm going to let Steve Smith talk a little bit about our approach to the Park of Commerce and how we would, from an industrial point of view, how we would move forward. What I will tell you first is, in the past, we've all gone out and chased that 100,000 square foot user, that one single tenant. That's what Rockefeller was doing, in fact. And if you look at the land development regulations that exist, the gentleman that stood here before you, the individual business owners, The land development regulations that exist in the Park of Commerce right now don't permit you to sell 1 acre tracts for that gentleman to build a 20 or 30,000 square foot space. We have to redevelop the entire land development regulations to allow for what they're talking about. So in our research and in our discussions, Steve Smith, who is a locally recognized professional in industrial parks, has put together a plan that I believe will be a key component in the development of the park. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, and I guess I'm a semi-suit. I'm not sure. I hope I am. 1 year ago, February, I stood with you guys, many of you, not all of you, and kind of reacted. At the time I said, please excuse me, because I had something like 24 hours notice that the meeting was going to go on at a commission level. And I brazenly stepped up and said, well, you know, I'm a big deal guy from out of town in Miami, and this is a no-brainer because we did have an appraisal that had been, I'd had the opportunity to review. And it was fairly straightforward. I tried to be fairly straightforward, and I said, that appraised price is a fair price, and I'm prepared to come to the table and buy the land at the appraised price. Very simple. Then my learning curve began, and your professional staff has been very helpful, and Mike Ladner, an old friend that I go back many years with, has also been very helpful, because I didn't know what the agreement of '93 was. The agreement of what's that? I didn't know. I had a lot to learn. But it's been a great learning experience, and I've really enjoyed interfacing with people from your staff, especially Kurt, who's been very open, as I know he is with everybody, with what's here. By the way, I got taken aside. A couple guys, Mr. Cates mentioned Ken Cummins. I remember last year I said, gee, I remember 20-some-odd years ago when I was summoned down in this direction by a bunch of guys from Canada who summarily fired me because they said, what are we going to do with this land we just bought? Called at that time Villages of whatever. And I said, wait 20 years. I got fired. Well, it's not just 20 years later, it's actually more than that. And to some of the folks here, we relate to Tamiami Airport too. I'm closing this week on the sale of land about a half a mile east of the entrance to Tamiami Airport. I bought it 30 years ago. And I said, because I was young and full of whatever, I still am, I hope, that this is a no-brainer, because in 5 years, maybe 6, 7 years, 8, 10 years, which was ridiculously far out from my perspective, there'll be buildings all around. So I caution all of us, and by the way, what I'm selling this week is raw land. Now, it's amongst the last pieces of land at the Tamiami Airport area, but it's also 30 years. So one of the things when I look back about what Kurt brought up first, I heard 3 things in your mission statement, Kurt, if I may. The first thing was, and by the way, I apologize to folks, being last is terrible because everybody wants to fall asleep by then, and I appreciate that. It's also kind of rude because you're tempted at least to respond to what people who have come before you have said. So I apologize a little bit by reacting, I guess, but I'm trying to be holistic. Kurt said, the purpose of your workshop today, by the way, I found out about yesterday, deja vu, was to refocus on the Park of Commerce. I couldn't agree more. I think everybody in this room, whether it's a newfound a bit of anxiety or it's been a year old or in some cases 2 or 3 or 4 years old, we all want to get to the point where something happens here. And I encourage that everybody, as Ramon and everybody who's succeeding at the microphone said, we're at that point. So number one, let's refocus, and by all means, I have no problem, let's refocus on the industrial park. Kurt said, I think the components might be price. And I remember one of you gentlemen saying to me last year, well, I'll take the highest price. And that's easy, 101 in math. I agree. On the surface, the highest price is always an easy thing. The last thing was development, the development of the community, the development of this park. There's the rub. Because I would, with due respect to everybody, say that development and your development strategy is unequivocally the most important aspect of what you guys are sitting here to do tonight. Because if you do get tempted to subdivide this property and sell 5 acres here, 10 acres there, or whatever, you're going to create a very interesting spectrum, which won't be very pretty, I would prognosticate, in 3 or 4 years. We don't know what the economic climate was going to be 3 years from now in the nation and in this community, but it can't be much more impelling to all of us to do things than it is today. Let's prognosticate that maybe it slows down a little bit. Maybe our economy just backs off a little bit. And we have 3 or 4 parcel owners, all in good faith, that believe that their 20 acres is the be-all and end-all. And on that 20 acres, or 10 acres, or 30 acres, or whatever, they built product. We're going to have a very interesting competitive situation. Because going back to numbers, you've got 123 acres. You heard Michael commit, and that's a pledge I made to Kurt some time ago into the community. I don't come here as an adjunct to a part of a residential development. To the lady that's not here, the commissioner that's not here, I want her to know that. I come here purely for the industrial piece of the pie. I have no interest one way or another in the residential. Now, on the industrial end of the pie, we commit 123 acres. That's what's left in this park. Michael didn't state, I think probably you forgot, but there's about 10 or so acres, or more than that, if I remember correctly, out of your takedown. So we're really up to about 150, 160 acres aggregate that is absolutely unequivocally earmarked for industrial. It is properly located, the zoning's there, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you ask me what that means in terms of square footage, because all of us in this room as a general statement are here as developers or wearing a developer's hat. Square footage wise, you're talking something in excess to 2 million square feet of space. 2 million square feet of space. How long do we all think that it's going to take to get 2 million square feet of users in the door of this park? It's going to take a long time. Now, why do I point that out? Because that long time connotes, as far as I'm concerned, an incredible amount of real-life risk on our part. We have stepped up and said, starting in February, whatever the date was, almost 1 year ago today, we'll pay the fair market price and we will close on an all-cash basis on the land. Now, we've all been through a learning curve in between, myself at the top of the list. I'm a little shakier today in saying that than I was a year ago because I know more than I did. That little knowledge doesn't hurt in sobering people up. But the mission is a tough mission. It's going to take a concerted, collective, orchestrated effort to get 2 million square feet of space out the door and in the hands of a user. Now, a user is a term not normally associated with real estate where people think residential. A user to me is what makes it work. If there's not a widget company that wants to build a widget in this park, then there is no user, there's no economic income. Whether that user buys this building or whether that user rents its building, it has to have an economic rent associated with that situation. So these are things that I would encourage you to consider. Now, cutting to the chase because it is late, and I apologize. We committed then, we commit now. I have done... okay. Can do this. I'll show. Thank you, Kurt. I don't know how to do this for the guys and gals in the audience. This is, I want to be fair, but I'm going to lose.
Show us first.
Okay, my apologies, everybody. We're all important. This focuses, a quick study, if you will, focuses on basically the 123 acres that are in this park. And again, to be very straight with yourself, part of what Michael acquired, or Ladiner Associates, et cetera, acquired, HPC, is on the other side of the lake, if you will. Everything basically on this side of the lake, including approximately the 3 acres that you mentioned for a industrial facility for the city is over here. So we divided this into various phases of the park. We studied and laid out square footages of building on every square foot of this land. Now, nobody can prognosticate for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years, and it ain't going to be 4 or 5 years. I'm sorry, but I guarantee that. But nobody can prognosticate that long. So we put on the map typical product. Our initial shot and commitment on the development, and question number 3 from Kurt. I want to build in a phase 1 over here on this end of the park 3 different product types. One is what we call in the trade flex space. It is probably approximately 50% office and 50% something. Something could be called a warehouse, it could be called a showroom space, could be called distribution or whatever. But it's a fairly meat and potatoes product, but it is the standard today for the small users, and it adapts very easily to an office, pure office environment. And we would do that, if you will, along the corridor over here that faces to the racetrack. So that's a little risky in itself because of the noise factor, but we think we can overcome that. As we get into the park, we will, on our own dime, build at least one more road in the park. This road does not exist in the park. That's on our dime. So we're going to take land out of the equation and build a road. That's part of the development process. And inside of this, where you could perhaps see it says 10 and 11, those are what I would call middle-size industrial buildings, and they would be in the range from 5,000 square feet, 6,000 square feet of space for the relatively small users. Notice I haven't said anything about 100,000 square foot users. I happen to agree that that is not going to happen for a long time. And then another part of this process is to build along the north perimeter, where we will, yes, have to come back, and that would be for smaller users, and they would typically occupy 1 acre of land, which holds, as a general rule of thumb, about 20,000 square foot building. So our initial takedown approaches 200,000 square feet of space. It might be a little bit more, and it might be slightly less, but that's something that we're committed to do right away, and we have the capital to do it. So that gives us a cross-section of product that we think speaks to the market that we have to create. Now, I use those words intentionally, and I would underscore them. We have to create a market here. Now, I've heard folks say, well, we're going to open a real estate office and so forth. My company, and my brokerage company, has been in business 26 years now. We've had the advantage of putting a sign on the entrance to the park, because Mike had acquired some land up there, and another sign down well within the park. You don't want to hear how many requests we have not had from people that are interested in the park. It is and the sign, the old real estate adage is, your sign is your best friend. People do not know this park exists. When they drive through it, they're thoroughly confused because there is no product, and the calls come from people who, frankly, are not real. They are not real. So today I had a call from a man who said, I want to pay 50 cents a square foot for that land, and I want to put some boat storage spaces on there. If that is your vision for this park, then proceed in a different direction. Our vision is different. We've got to create an overall park, and we do that first by building product. Old adage in the development business, I don't care whether it's residential or commercial, build it and they will come. If nobody builds significant product of a good spectrum, you're going to sit and look at an empty park for a long time. It just is the real world. So I hope that speaks a little bit to a plan and gives you comfort, those that may be concerned, that we are absolutely committed to building a first-class business park. By the way, the first one that I was involved with, we coined that term. Up until then, in the 70s, I guess, hate to say that, people called them industrial parks. We called America's Gateway Park the first planned business park in Dade County. It was, and it is. And I would invite you all to come up and see that park, which has 2 million square feet, good number again, or some of the adjacent parks. They are not the exact model for what's going to needs to happen in Homestead. It will be a different mix, but they're not totally out to lunch either. There is a relationship with what's done further north in our county, because obviously the other side of that coin is we want to bring the same businesses that are north of us here to the south and bring them here. I did some quick math on a sketch pad when I was here. I think we're talking about a minimum of about 20,000 new jobs that would come and be within this park. That is, you can't do it in onesies and twosies. You've got to have a plan. And we've spent a lot of time, a lot of energy. So from my point of view, we came, we saw, like Ramon, we've come to the table, and we're very, very interested in just doing a deal and getting on with it. It is time. I'm sorry, if I may answer any questions.
You talked about a mix in the first phase.
Yes, sir.
What's your vision in the second and third phase? A similar mix?
Great question. The way we laid this out, and we've spent a lot of architectural stuff, and again, I apologize, I could have brought to do this in 3D and so forth. These buildings, if you will, flip-flop. This product, which is in a different environment, we would probably build buildings that are 10 to 20,000 square feet in what we call bay sizes. These are 5,000 square feet. You can obviously bring them together into 10,000 square foot increments and so forth. But this allows us to speak to the local tradesmen, etc. So these buildings here in our first phase, we do a smattering of them like that. And then as we go, we do the second half here, and then we presumably go westward with the same type of product. The product along the north here is what's going to be of greatest demand, and that's why we always leave flexibility, and you'll see some blanks here. Because as we go, if the market continues to do what it is today, there's an absolute preoccupation in the Miami community, business community, with owning real estate. Condominium warehouses, which I used to stand on a podium and say, that's not a good business formula for the business owner. Today, it doesn't matter whether I think it is or not, because the business owners very much favor that. So at a point in time, some of these products will turn into either single-user buildings on smaller pieces, or perhaps even condominium products. One of the questions, by the way, which was very, very appropriately asked, and I've seen it elsewhere, is the intention here to do it all? The answer to that is unequivocally no, because it would be an absolute roadmap for disaster. If any developer came and said, I'm going to build out this whole park, 2 million square feet, by myself, because I am Mr. Whoever, well, then he and Mr. Rockefeller can get together and commiserate 5 or 10 years from now, because it ain't the real world. You have to bring in all sorts of folks. Everybody in this room is welcome. You've got to, but you've got to have something that puts the whole act together, establishes a market rate, and holds the course. The toughest part of this park development is going to be the first 12 months after the product is built. So if we build 200,000 square feet and then more, having paid $12 million for the land or whatever, having paid another $6 or $8 million for the balance of the infrastructure cost, and now our bean counters are saying, don't forget that clock is ticking on the cost of money which is out there, because that's what's going to kill it if we're not careful. Then we put another X millions of dollars into the buildings. Then we find out if we are right when we say we think there's a market out there. Because I've heard for the same year here, I've heard from the Vision Council, I've heard various folks here, we've got people stacked up waiting to go in these buildings. I would love to know the name, rank, and serial number of any company that is stacked up waiting to go in this park.
Thank you. Raise your hands.
Terrific. That's great. Now we've got 20,000 square feet. We have another 20. That's right. Absolutely correct. We've called it a sign because we don't know if we have a contract or not. Don't go back and forth.
Yeah.
You have to come to the
Mr. Mayor.
I got a question later.
Mr. Mayor, I've been listening to this presentation, and I'm sitting here feeling very insulted. And the reason being is and I know your job is to sell and to be a great persuasive influence. I'm a salesman myself, so I understand the mission here. But you know, we have a group of people out here
that come to us is saying, we've been trying to purchase a piece of the park so we can move our business here and create jobs right away. And you're sitting here in front of them, in front of this council, and telling this council there's no market for it, or there's no people stacked up to build for it. I mean, I'm really insulted. You just insulted my intelligence. I'm seeing people calling me, making meetings with me, sitting out here in the crowd as putting information together with names and plus names that's not even on this list, saying that we want to bring our business here, and we just want a piece of the pie. That's all we want. And you're sitting here telling us, mayor and council, we have to work really hard. This is going to be a hard task. We got to create a market here. The market is sitting right out here in front of us. Do not insult our intelligence that way. Do not.
Mayor, I'm going to apologize.
Mr. and Councilman Hodge.
I certainly apologize. I hope that you'll take this perspective of the square footages that I've tried to discuss with you all.
Councilman Hodge, I think part of the frustration that we all share is for some time we have been looking for a certain type of business to come in. The land development regulations that currently exist in the Park of Commerce don't allow for the 1 acre parcels, the 2 acre parcels. They don't allow for it. You have, I think it's a minimum of 2.5 acres, 3 acres. There's a minimum in the development size for the Park of Commerce. And for the individual owners that are here now, there is a market for a portion, okay? But I don't believe that there is a market for 2 million square feet at this point. It's going to take a lot of work to get to that level. We mean no disrespect to anyone in this room. I've had conversations with people that were looking for as little, actually a pest control company that was looking for 1,500 square feet. But part of our development concept is to build that for them right away to allow 200,000 square feet of flex space, which was one of the other components that a gentleman mentioned earlier, to allow that to be readily available. So when this gentleman calls on that sign, or when anybody calls on coming and relocating into the Park of Commerce, there is readily available product. Also, in the past, the Rockefeller Development Group, their approach was to do everything soup to nuts. It was not to sell a piece of land only and let somebody else develop it and build it. What we're proposing, and I think what Mr. Smith had mentioned, is we've got to be, all of us together have to work to ensure consistency. All of us together have to bring to the table the individual boat owner, the gentleman that wanted to do a financial services office, the pest control company. And if they want to build, God bless them, let them move forward and build. We will work with them to ensure design quality is the same, and I think that's something that you have strove for, or whatever, however you say that word in the past tense, in the past. At the end of the day, it's important that we move forward consistently and comprehensively, not in a hodgepodge way. So we mean no disrespect by that. I think there's a lot of confusion in what has been offered in the past and what is available now. So at this point, I'd like to continue with the presentation if I can. That's the part of the Park of Commerce that we've been working to try and develop a marketing concept and a development concept to move that forward. But as we move forward with the discussion of the 93 agreement, I want to be very pointed here. The commitment for the purchase of the Park of Commerce, we have offered at this point $100,000 an acre. But part of that, in the discussion of the comprehensive settlement of the 93 agreement and what we're dealing with in the Park of Commerce, there's a financial offer already back to the city that would be credited against, so there's no monies exchanged, and the city doesn't have to write a check for what they feel would be necessary in settling the 93 agreement. So there's, as Mr. Losner so ably put it, we are close to making that deal, which would, at the end of the day, right now what's on the table is greater than the numbers that you've been seeing now or hearing now at $120,000 an acre. Part of our commitment is also building 200,000 square feet of flex space right away. We will begin to design and build available product for the users that you have here, or working with them to subdivide into office space for Mr. Bass, or land availability around the lake area that we're creating in the industrial park. So we're ready to move forward with that kind of development concept. As far as housing and making an industrial park successful, there are several components, as I said earlier, trying to get back to the presentation, and I'm sorry, I will do my best to be as quick as possible. The Keys Gate development originally was 3,300 acres. That's the DRI. It still has 3,300 acres in the development of regional impact. It includes everything from housing in lakeshore condominiums to estate homes at the fairways to now a motorsports complex, which is a great neighbor, baseball complex, the industrial park. All of that, in fact, the motorsports complex and the baseball complex was created earlier. That was not the original DRI use. All of it originally was residential. If you look at the original DRI, it was residential. In 1993, there was a big swap which created the 93 agreement, and for the consideration of the 93 agreement to the developer at that time, the city received about 1,100 acres. It was at about 1,100 acres, including the Park of Commerce, including, I believe, the motorsports complex at the time. So you've got, at that time, the agreement that was originally discussed in 93 creating the Park of Commerce. So it changed it from a residential use to a Park of Commerce use. Now, subsequently, I believe in 91, I think it was actually, before, you adopted the AQs, and Mike can help me, as an ordinance. I think it was in 1991. The AQs area, which...
It's over there.
Again, I'm trying to rush along. I know how it is to sit up there. There's somebody I think I'm doing. The AQs area comes as it splits the lake, essentially, and comes through the Park of Commerce, as you see here. In fact, it comes over to here. It takes in this is the Contender Boats area. All right, and under that land area is the industrial park. Nothing can be done there but industrial. Nothing can be done there. In fact, well, I'm sorry, there are some other limited uses, office complex and like, but mass gathering, residential development, those kinds of things cannot be done under the AQs. And in fact, as you approach the runway going north, there's land area that's outside the urban development and inside the urban development boundary line that also faces those similar restrictions. So while we are looking at 123 acres here under the AQs for industrial park, looking at about 46 acres, Ms. Bell, it was 46 acres. For the town center, the public library, and things that I'm going to talk about in a few seconds, I mean, those create an environment that people are going to desire coming and locating their businesses and their companies and living, working, and playing in the same place. So, with that, the housing component that we are talking about is the town center. Over the last, it's been 8 months, 7 months, we've been looking at developments of mixed-use communities across the state of Florida. We have had architects with us, we have had engineers with us, we have had industrial professionals with us, we have flown all over the state and have come up with a couple developments that are very appealing to us. One being, I think, in the top at this point is a development called Baldwin in Orlando. I'm going to pass out, I had pictures, pass to the clerk. The pictures of Baldwin are on the top, and then there's a couple photos of other developments that are in and around the state of Florida that are similar to the town center concept. Now, the town center concept is building upon the old day where you have, within a walking distance or a reasonable proximity, retail, commercial, housing, industrial, all of that in an area that you build around a civic complex, if you will. I know that, and we've had conversations with, and let me go ahead and put up the site plan, if you will. The 46...
Steve, out of the 46 acres,
yes, sir.
46 acres represents the town center?
Only 46 acres represents the town center, which
the remainder would be commercial industrial development?
No. In fact, the remainder of the Park of Commerce would be industrial. Of the 46 acres, Mayor Warren, there is retail space, there are office spaces, there are it's not industrial, there are restaurants, there's a civic building, I think it's about 35,000 square feet for a public library and a police substation. So there are uses within the 46 acres that are not residential.
Not all residential.
It is a hybrid. It is a hybrid of residential and commercial development that creates a town center that urban design principles across the country are looking at every day. So not only are we including, and let me step back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Not only are we including, let me orient you. This is north. This is the baseball complex down here. Your lake and the Park of Commerce. And this is the sales center that currently exists, the Keys Gate Sales Center. This land area is all vacant, all right, and currently in a commercial designation. So the trip traffic, I mean, we could really go in there and build a regional mall in that facility right now, and the trip traffic created by the commercial use will be greater than what we're proposing at this point. On the west side of town, of Kingman actually, we're looking to build a residential community that includes and encompasses single-family development, single-family homes, condominium development, apartments possibly, market rate. Let me underscore that.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Charles, can you help me out for a minute here?
Yes.
We're basing a sale to you on changes to the DRI.
No, ma'am.
You're talking about adding schools and adding residential to the Park of Commerce. If that's commercial, the current DRI has specific school sites slated. What would be the process for him to have to change all this before we made a decision on the Park of Commerce contingent to this?
We're not making it contingent to that, Ms. Bell, and if you would have asked me that question, I could very well answer that for you. We're not making it contingent to that at all.
From the DRI that I've seen, the last time I looked at it, there were specific school sites which were not included in the Park of Commerce.
Absolutely, I agree.
Doesn't that have to go to the state?
Well, ma'am, again, the process is filing a notice of proposed change. The notice of proposed change was filed a week ago. The notice of proposed change, and again, we're not making this contingent. The sale of the Park of Commerce to us is not contingent upon that. What we're saying
about my decision.
I understand, and you said it was contingent. I'm saying it's not, ma'am. Respectfully, it's not. We're not making it contingent.
By the way, her name is Miss Garner. I'm Miss Bell.
Did I say I'm sorry? I apologize. I'm not making it contingent on, we're not making it contingent on that at all. When I started the presentation, we talked very clearly about having to deal comprehensively with the DRI. I mean, in fact, you're right. There needs to be a notice of proposed change that goes to the Regional Planning Council. It goes through your Planning and Zoning Board. It goes to the state DCA. I mean, it goes through a whole host of public hearings. Zoning and all of the underlying land use would have to be changed.
You want to change all of that?
No, ma'am. Not contingent upon the park. I'm telling you that this is...
All of your changes, what you're going to do to the park is continue that you can get all these changes. That's what I'm saying. I want to know how long this process could be before we'd even know if you'd be able to do that. We'd have to approve that first, if I'm correct?
Yes, it goes through you. It absolutely starts at the level of the city council. Actually, the Planning and Zoning Board, I'm sorry.
There's just several issues to me that you're confusing me. I mean,
that's not my intention. Again, we started the presentation by saying it's to build a successful industrial park. There are site selectors that come in, there are mom and pops that come in that look at the entire surroundings, schools, parks, what's available for housing. It's not just about the industrial park itself.
Right, okay? And if all of the agencies that have to approve your changes, the notice of proposed change, if they do not approve those,
then we're dealing with more acreage in the industrial park, as Mrs. Bell said. If all of the agencies
I'd be happy to see that.
Yeah, if that's the bottom line. If the agencies, if we can't get through the process and they don't grant the changes that we're asking for, then of course we have to deal with the rest of the Park of Commerce, and we'll add that to this existing amount that we have. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, again, this is a comprehensive plan, and I mean no disrespect to you, Councilwoman Amanda Garner. I don't mean any disrespect to you at all, but I think I may have misrepresented or miscommunicated myself in saying that this was contingent. No, it's not contingent on that at all. But it's more than just somebody coming in and buying 5 acres in the Park of Commerce. So the development plan that you have before you consists of residential. It consists of the town center. If you look at I'll show you the drawings here. This is the type of development that we're talking about. And this is from angle...
May I ask a question before you answer?
Yes, Ms. Bowman?
Can I just, I need to
Absolutely.
clarify for me,
Yes,
because I'm a little confused as well, and I just have to clarify it for me. I think what you're doing here, and I'm not trying to second guess what you're doing, but what I think you're doing is that you're proposing an overall vision.
Yes, ma'am.
An overall vision.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm understanding in the beginning statements that regardless of whether any changes are ever approved on the other pieces of property, that has nothing to do with the Park of Commerce
Yes, ma'am.
land. In other words, there's not one contingency in there, you just want to buy it outright and develop it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the reason you are talking about the property that you already own, which would be a usable 46 acres, correct?
Well, it's 75 in total, but 46 that would include the town center concept.
Right, but you're just, I think, you're just sharing a vision as to what you would like to see happen. But I also understand from having sat on this council for a couple of years that this 1993 agreement haunts us, and I have gone publicly on the record and said to you, Mr. Shiver, I don't want to hear you utter those words again, and I know you have to, but you really tick me off sometimes, but every time I turn around, it's a 1993 agreement. But I do understand, and I hope, and I know Mr. Losner is going to share with us some insight, and I'm anxiously looking forward to his comments as to why you are getting into this vision, because I know that it is tied into the 1993 agreement.
Well, not even that. I don't want to say in no way can you settle the 93 agreement for contractually giving away your zoning power. Not saying that.
I didn't mean that.
No, ma'am, not at all. But your analysis of what I'm trying to do is absolutely correct, and I thought that I had communicated that in the beginning, and I apologize for not doing it more clearly. At the end of the day, we're interested in the Park of Commerce.
I think what we as a council need to stay focused on is and again, I realize that we have to talk about the 1993 agreement. I realize that, and I realize it has to be talked about tonight. However, our focus is on the development of the Park of Commerce.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, and again, when Mr. Smith went through our development concept in the Park of Commerce, that's part of what we've been doing with this kind of concept as well, in bringing together a comprehensive community development strategy that addresses the gamut of real estate uses. It's not just one industrial user. It is really building a community around an industrial park.
And did I hear you say, because I was looking at pictures, I was passing them, within the 46 acres, that's where you had envisioned a library?
Yes, ma'am. And I was showing some of the renderings that we have here. If you look, the lake area here, this is a boardwalk that would be created completely around the lake, creating the availability for office space here along the...
Excuse me, can I interrupt a minute?
Yes.
Is the area that you're talking about around the lake, for example, is that in the acreage? No, is that in the acreage that is currently available for sale?
This land area to the south is. This land area to the north is not.
I think that we need to keep the conversation on the area that is available for purchase, because that was the purpose of this workshop, and your other proposals may have a bearing on it, but I think that the focus of this workshop needs to be just on what it was announced to be for discussion, which is how the Park of Commerce is going to be sold, and how the council is going to make a decision on who the purchaser should be.
Well,
this is the right forum to bring up the 93 agreement and other issues.
Well, Ms. Sirota, I understand those comments, and having sat on that side of the table, there are more things that are involved than just selling the Park of Commerce. Months ago, the mayor appointed a council member to be part of a negotiation of the 93 agreement, which included at that time a significant portion of the Park of Commerce. And so while we have operated under the guise of settling the entire thing comprehensively, I understand the need to focus on the Park of Commerce. But I would submit to you that as the owner of all of the land area, substantial land area surrounding the Park of Commerce, it's more, as owners of substantially the land area, Mr. Martinez, it's important for us to share with, we felt it was important for us to share with you our complete vision so that down the road somebody doesn't say, well, Mr. Shiver, Mr. Latner, Mr. Rosen, Mr. Joseph, you have changed what you said you were going to do. That's not, we have always been focused on building a comprehensive development that runs the gamut of real estate services. I will stick to the Park of Commerce issue here, but I felt it was very important to share the entire development concept that we've been working on for 8 months, in and around your staff. So.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad this was brought up because I sit here frustrated again and again and again, and I've brought up that we do this a lot. We do this all the time, where we have a notice of a meeting. It might be a zoning change, and on a zoning change, we have somebody up here pitching what they're going to do if the zoning is changed before we've even decided if the zoning is going to be changed. I have a problem with that. We had something similar on the sale of the sports complex. We have a pitch for the sale where we haven't even decided to sell it or not yet. So these are things that we're always getting the cart before the horse, and for the last year I'm frustrated about this. So I think it's inappropriate. I do understand your whole package concept here, but we are here and we've noticed for the park, for the sale of the park. If you want to have a special committee, the whole workshop, to share on the 46 acres, to share what you want to do on the 75 portion, the portion of the 75 that's shown, more than appropriate. But this is to discuss the sale. Whom would be the best to purchase the 123 acres, what the whole package, the price, what they're going to do with it, the build out, et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to stay on task, and we're digressing again. Yes, and I really have a problem with that, and it's nothing personal. We just need to get back on task.
Vice Mayor Bell, I could not agree more. If that is the wish of this board to speak solely about the Park of Commerce, we merely provided information because it is not just about the Park of Commerce. While we talk tonight about, and it's noticed that we're going to discuss the sale of the Park of Commerce, I mean, if that's the case, then Mr. Martinez should not be standing up here talking about a CDBG grant, which has no bearing whatsoever on the Park of Commerce. So
Mr. Martinez, don't talk.
I'm just saying that we want to.
Let us get back on course, Steve. Let's get it back. I think the council must realize we have a unique situation with Michael Latner and his group, and I think we need to wait to hear from Councilman Losner as to what progress they're making on this unique circumstance. Now, we did not restrict any of the presenters from making a presentation and including what they thought would be appropriate to sell and give us their pitch on the sale of the Park of Commerce. So I have no problem, Mr. Shiver, Mr. Latner, them giving a vision not only of the park, but parcels that they own, acres that they own surrounding the park, and what they want to do with it comprehensively. I think it enhances their presentation as far as I'm interested in that. Steve referenced the 46 acres. I'd really like to see what you can do with that 75 acres. So yes, I have no problem with that, but we did not restrict any presenters from presenting what they feel was necessary to sell their proposals. So I don't want to restrict Mr. Shiver or Mr. Latner there either. So just kind of speed it up, Steve, so we could, as I'd like to hear from Mr. Losner as to what...
Mr. Mayor, again, to all of the council members, the city attorney, the manager, I mean, no disrespect whatsoever. I was merely doing what I felt would be appropriate and sharing with you a complete development concept for the park and the surrounding areas, which we do substantially control. So I apologize if there's been any misunderstanding. These are the renderings that are coming from within the Park of Commerce. This is the site plan. Again, all of it is subject to the NOPC, which means the Planning and Zoning Board, the DRC, the Development and Review Committee, the Regional Planning Council, which is made up of a host of tri-county, I believe, members, as well as DCA. So all of that has been filed. The city is part of that. In fact, the city has in the past filed notices of proposed changes in the DRI themselves. So it's a process that we go through, and we know very well that we have to go from the beginning to the end. This is the development. These are the renderings. If you'd like to look at them later, I'd be happy to share with you individually the renderings and how they fall in the development of the Park of Commerce.
At some point, Stephen, you could tell me, I mean, you may not have the number, but out of the 46 acres, what percentage of that is strictly residential? What percentage is commercial? What percentage is industrial?
Well, it's...
Because I know it's a mixed use there, right?
May I approach?
Yeah, go ahead.
And again, not to be rude to the audience. If you look at the rendering, it's difficult to say specific. I can do it. We can calculate it. But if you look at this rendering, down here you've got retail. You've got restaurants, you've got office shops, you've got office up here. Here you have condominiums. And the pictures that I passed out earlier, if you guys have had a chance to look through them, which included Baldwin, that includes the commercial development areas on the bottom floor, ice cream shops, coffee shops, sandwich shops. We've been talking to a reputable coffee company who's interested in coming here, a bookstore, and the residential component is above that. So it's not, and again I have to underscore, it is not a bait and switch, taking the Park of Commerce and putting residential solely in that development. It is a variety that adds to the quality of life. I mean, we're actually talking, we've discussed with the director of the public library system about building a facility here. They don't have the money to build a facility on that side of town. We've discussed building it for them and leasing it back. You need another public library down here. This one here is pretty crowded. So that it's an overall development concept, Mr. Mayor and council members, that we feel through research, through real estate professionals, industrial professionals, we feel it works. We've visited the sites. We have toured with Councilman Losner, a couple of the sites, in fact, and we feel that it will be successful. We're willing to put up the money. We, in fact, have already acquired the fill from you at, I think it was about $3.5 million to fill the Park of Commerce. We have already purchased at a $7.5 million, 75 acres within the Park of Commerce. And we stand ready at this point with, right now, $12.5 million in the bank waiting to settle the 93 agreement, which, in our opinion, included substantially the Park of Commerce. So at this point, Mr. Mayor, I will end the discussion. Unless there's questions, we have asked, or had been asked months ago, to be part of the process of settling. Councilman Waldman, I know I hate even looking at you when I say that word, but we were asked to participate in a process. We have been participating in that process for months. We, a week ago, I think it was a week ago, Mr. Ivey, maybe at the end of the week before, so almost a week and a half ago, we received an offer from the City of Homestead. We are still in the throes of discussing that with your staff. And at this point, we feel that we have played by all the rules. We were here over a year ago, February of last year, talking about the Park of Commerce, and we'd like to complete the process. The appraisal is an absolute integral part of settling anything with anybody in this room and us as well. We want to pay fair market value. We will pay fair market value for the property. We're not trying to do anything less, Vice Mayor Bell. But we do want to bring some closure to this 93 agreement. And there is value in that agreement. You have already offered us.
And Steve, I'm going to tonight ask the council to set a time frame by which we can get that done. And
well, I know
you all have been working on it for 8 months. Now we're going to set a time frame so we can move forward on this thing. We've been going back and forth for a long time, and it needs to be settled, Councilman Losner.
Well, that concludes, unless there's any questions, that concludes my presentation. We would like you to give us a couple weeks, move to direct the manager to give us a couple weeks to finalize the negotiation, including, if not, the Park of Commerce or not. You'll not be in any different position that if we decide not to include the Park of Commerce as part of the settlement of the 93 agreement, that you in 2 weeks from now go out, and once we get the appraisal back, that you go out to bid publicly, do an RFP. you would not be in any different position. However, if we use and you choose to accept an offer that we work together to bring to this council for approval, and it includes the Park of Commerce, you have the prerogative of doing that. So we would like to take a couple weeks to finalize this entire package.
Thank you, Mr. Shiver. Mr. Richardson?
Good evening, Council. I'm Mike Richardson. I serve as the President of Vision Council, the local economic development organization. As you all know, I've been here several times in that. I should preface my remarks tonight that the Vision Council Board of Directors has not met on this issue, has not taken a formal position. What you will hear from me is my personal perspective as President of Vision Council, and I could certainly be overridden by my board at any time, but so there is that hedge to my comments. About 15 years ago, Vision Council in the city of Homestead partnered to create Vision Foreign Trade Zone, Inc. The purpose of the Vision Foreign Trade Zone, Inc. was to petition the federal government to create a 1,000-acre foreign trade zone in the East Homestead area and subsequently to operate that. I should up front note that operations of the foreign trade zone, businesses in the foreign trade zone would in fact provide an income stream for Vision Foreign Trade Inc. and Vision Council, and to underwrite our activities of promoting Homestead, the greater Homestead, Florida City area, businesses, bringing businesses in that area. Right now, our income is primarily from the members of our organization. Since that foreign trade zone was created, I think I can say from the Vision Foreign Trade Zone perspective, we have seen a continual eroding of the city's commitment to a foreign trade zone in East Homestead. Of the 1,000-acre coverage we have out there, approximately 75% of it have been dedicated to other uses which are totally incompatible with a foreign trade zone. We start, and there's not a value judgment here, but they're incompatible. We start with the large number of parking lots that are dedicated to the Homestead Miami Speedway. We look to the rock and sand pits that are down there evacuating fill. There's the mitigated area. There's the baseball complex. Today, the only part of that 1,000 acres that is useful to us as a foreign trade zone is the approximately 280-acre Park of Commerce. Consequently, it is to our advantage if none of that land is taken out of its industrial zoning and it can continue to be used to bring in businesses that create wealth. Roman is the one that used that phrase tonight, but it's not new. About 5 years ago, Vision Council sponsored, I'm not an economist, but Vision Council brought an economist to town. I believe his name was William Firth, and he made a presentation about how we could create wealth in our community. And basically his point was we need to take our natural resources and our natural talents and create goods and services that are sold outside our community so that we are bringing money from outside our community into our community. That's how we create wealth in our community. The service industries, and I don't mean to put you guys down, but the plumbers and the electricians that service the local community don't create wealth. They take the existing wealth and rotate it within the community. That's what I heard Bill Firth say. And I think what we need to concentrate on as a community is how we're going to use this property to create wealth for our community. I should note that within a foreign trade zone, the federal government regulations do not permit in an operating foreign trade zone, and understand we only have one very small portion of our total 1,000 acres that are activated as a foreign trade zone. In an activated foreign trade zone, retail and residential operations are not permitted. Consequently, we can't mix the retail residential component within the industrial component. That hasn't been proposed here tonight, but you need to know that. Now, with those things said, I would like to throw out 4 or 5 ideas that are thoughts that I think you need to consider when you start talking about who you are going to sell this property to. Bob Anderson, my predecessor at Vision Council, and myself have, as we've talked to businesses coming in that want to create basically industrial heavy commercial businesses, they aren't looking for the 1,000 square foot warehouse buildings. They want to start talking about a 3,000 foot, 5,000 square, and maybe up to 10,000 feet. Consequently, I would urge you to look at proposals that will provide those larger areas for businesses that in fact can create wealth. Secondly, I absolutely agree with Mr. Smith. Spec development is going to be absolutely critical. One of the faults of the Rockefeller Group was that they didn't want to build anything in advance. They were going to build to need. You're going to have a developer that will come out there, put something up, and so people can get in immediately. I've had enough calls from people expressing an interest in the foreign trade zone to know that most of them want to move into a building tomorrow. They are not there looking for a long-term commitment to build and then start their operations. I will say Roman is probably the first one that's come to us with that type of a vision. I do absolutely believe you need to sell this as a large parcel. You need a single developer, and that's primarily so that you can enforce the standards that we as a community want in that particular area. We've talked before about how we've avoided the Kendall complex by not letting our residential policy, our residential areas be developed in small plots, 5 and 10 acre plots. We've done the large residential developments to maintain standards so that you've got community associations that will continue to be there and have an interest in maintaining the standards. I think that's equally true in the Park of Commerce, and would urge that whatever you do, maintain that emphasis on quality building. I know if you don't, you're going to have all those people from the Keysgate complex in here on a regular basis telling you how much they dislike their industrial neighbors. I am as you know, I'm very concerned about the interrelationship of this development with Homestead Air Reserve Base and the various restrictions imposed by the air installation compatible use zone recommendations. So far tonight, only one of the potential buyers has talked to that issue. I know Roman's aware of it, but please, as you look at this, make sure that everybody is absolutely aware of the impact of those ACU's restrictions. And lastly, a question that popped in my mind tonight, and I don't have an answer for, and I doubt that you will also, and it may be an incomplete thought.
Density of people.
Roman mentioned his grant, and in that grant proposal which you approved, there was some commitment to a certain amount of land area to support this fiber optic ring. I would be very concerned about the position the city would be in if in fact you didn't follow through with those commitments. If in fact then you default on the grant, what are the consequences both to Latam-NAP and to the city? Who's going to owe who money? Who are the potential lawsuits? And until that question's answered, I would be very concerned about the possibility of selling any land to anybody. So with that, I'll close. If you have any questions for me, I'll be here for a second.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Roman had it.
Go to the microphone. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mike said a lot of things that were on my mind, but I want to also speak as a current landowner next to the Park of Commerce, not even as in my role of a purchaser of land. And my concern comes from the idea we did commit to the foreign trade zone, and we are committed to the area. As Mike said, we built in the area. And we have a warehouse that is dedicated to distribution. For me, traffic coming from any other use in the park other than industrial commercial will be a major problem. We know that residential retail areas bring a lot of traffic into a park that's already bothered by substantial residential development on 152 and a hospital that will be on exit 2, residential development on its Florida City side. So if we choke the entrance of the Park of Commerce itself, it will be detrimental to any business moving into the industrial area. That, for me, it's something that has to be considered when deciding what the use is going to be, regardless whether it is for me or for any other gentleman in the group. I know about shopping centers, I know about wholesale centers and wholesale areas. And I know that one major, one of the most important components of any successful new building is to have sufficient infrastructure to support it. What I saw, I didn't see it closely, but from what I saw on that map, on the proposed use of the 75 acres and the 46 acres, I see that as a problem as a current landowner. And I would ask to be invited to any such meeting that discusses that use in the future. Thank you.
I've been quiet, Mayor. May I ask a question?
Guys, can I talk just 1 second to, and that is intended as rebuttal, maybe an amplification. I've in my career been involved in 2 or 3 free trade zones, and I love them. There is absolutely nothing that is in our plan, with due respect, that is contradictory to the possibility of a free zone being everybody's forestated vision here. Having said that, I will give you some thoughts. The Miami airport is a little bit bigger economic engine than we have here, and the free trade zone there, which was formed about 35 years ago, has been sitting there. It's 602,000 square feet in size of buildings, and it sits on about 25 acres of land. It has not expanded for the last 20 years. It has served, and it's a unique one, by the way. Ramon and I have spent some time together and talked about win-win situations. So I only put that in the context. And to be fair to Ramon, his vision is a little bit different vision than the free zone concept by the airport, with due respect. But free zones, from my perspective as a business park person, are absolutely a wonderful marketing amenity. They can add value, but you have to be very careful in implementing that concept or buying into it, because there's not an assurance that they will bring users to the park, i.e. in fact, we worked with the Vision Council and tried to become more active in the free zone, and Ramon and a fair shot was awarded the free zone, the ability to run the free zone. That is not mutually exclusive to anything we've said here. We would welcome that, to use the free zone. It can't, but there can't be a council that says this 100 acres can only be used for a free zone. Then I'm looking at a 40 or 50 year projection as far as I'm concerned. To yourself, Madam Attorney, and I apologize, I don't know everybody's name. You had a great question, 2 questions before, if I can remember them. One of them was, why are we talking about, they both were, why are we talking about the residential component here? Number 1, it's good faith. For us to sit here and talk about what's on the blackboard that says industrial and not tell you about that, I think would be very bad faith. Number 2, it is absolutely part of the strategy and actually increased risk And forgive me, Councilman, if I talk about risk, but I'm a businessman. It'll be my MasterCard that goes downhill if we guess wrong here. But the risk of creating this park, we think, is offset and helps, which helps the community, helps you guys have more employment and so forth, if it's surrounded by this. I fought it, by the way, Kurt Ivey, and I sat with Kurt Ivey 9 months ago and said, Kurt, I'm not so sure I'm going to be on Mike's team on this. And I pledged to you that I wouldn't let him steamroll me. He's absolutely convinced me and the professionals that he's associated with, and when we go out around the country and look at the holistic way that things are being developed, it's very, very cool. Dade County now is increasingly in the charrette business. I recently negotiated to put a Mercedes-Benz dealer at the corner of the old Cutler Ridge Shopping Center. A Mercedes-Benz dealer out of Coral Gables is now going into the corner of the old Cutler Ridge Shopping Center. I think that's pretty good marketing. And it was a harder sell to sell the buyer than it was to sell the shopping center about how neat it would be to have a Mercedes dealer there. Part of that whole dialogue was dealing with the county and charrettes. And the word vision is not a bad word. It is on the lips of every true professional, dedicated planner, be it the government side of the spectrum or the private side, because it's what creates value. To me, the value is accelerating the potential of developing this park and bringing users to the park. Users generate revenue, users generate jobs, etc., etc. If they come faster because they enjoy that environment, well, we think that's great. Again, not mutually exclusive to free zones, etc., etc. I have been involved in free zones. I understand them exactly from an operational point of view and from a marketing point of view. They're great. Amen. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Ken Cummins. You heard my name mentioned before, and being an Irishman, if your name is mentioned, you usually get up and either say thank them or hit them. I haven't met Stephen Smith in the last 20-some-odd years. I think both of us got a lot younger looking since we met before. I just wanted to say how sorry I feel that he took on an assignment 23 years in the future. I hope you didn't pay for the assignment. I first showed up on the doorstep here in 1974, being sent down here by two partner companies, and my job was to take a look at land they joint ventured and to get it approved. 19 months later and 185,000 air miles later, in this council chamber on February the 19th, 1976, the vote was 18-2 in favor by the South Florida Region Planning Council. I had to go to hospital to get all the stripes and whips marked up in my back that this council and planning commission gave me, and when I went back they thought I'd better go work somewhere else. So I moved out to Western Canada. They started the development here. It was 30 years in the future, but however, let me tell you about the DRI for those of you who may not have read the original document. It was that thick, and if you hit anyone with it, they would feel it. And many times we did that. It did include a balanced community. It had residential, industrial, recreational, and open spaces in it. And it was designed to handle a population that was approved by this council, this planning commission, the Dade County, and the South Florida Regional Planning Council. The fact that when they started, when the developer started, and I wasn't here, I had gone on to other things in Western Canada. I'm incidentally an American citizen now and have been for 1,000 years and support the Jaguars up in Jacksonville. What had happened was that when we had run and were developing a very successful development outside Toronto, which had an 800-acre industrial park in a 3,500-acre development. And we had the problem there that you had here. We tried to bring industry in without population. And the industry would say, we love your site, but where are our workers? When we went to bring builders in, we say, we love where you are, but where can they work? What happened was, through persistence on the industrial side, we actually got control data to commit to a Canadian center in this new town of Meadowvale that I was involved in. That brought the first houses, then the others. Now it is one of the most successful new communities in Ontario. And it has the largest industrial park, it has housing for all levels, and it does include places where the plumber can go and where the executive's housekeeper can live. Exactly the same thing that's happening here. And this is a wonderful, wonderful community. And it had a town center in the original DRI. I don't know what happened to it. And if I'd known this discussion was going to take place, I'd have got it out from under the old car that it's supporting at the present time and reread it. But I have the DRI, and for those that have not read it and criticize it, they should take a look at it. This council was very proud, very forward-thinking, and personally, as far as all this new stuff that's been talked about, we don't really care. We're just interested in developing 123 acres of land, and we can live with any decision that this council is likely to make as to how they deal with the surrounding area. And if they can recover some of the original concept, I think it would be very helpful. There was open space. There were all these things, there were libraries, there were fire stations, everything was in its place, and it was the same skill and sensitivity that was used on developing these major Canadian communities that we used to take people in from tour groups in from all over the United States, all over Australia. They would come in to look at it. The same application was made here. The reason I'm so happy to be down here, I really love this community and I want to see it successful, and the people that I'm associated with it, I can guarantee they will do it. One of my jobs will be to make damn sure that they do. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to end any more public comments and proceed with the council comments. Mr. Porter?
Rick, there's been a couple of comments about the grant and the fulfillment of the grant and the commitment that may have been made in the grant. Are you familiar with that enough to refer to any of that tonight?
I expected to be a spectator, not a participant.
Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot if you're not prepared. I just, that's a critical component.
I can answer some specific questions because the grant was given to the city when I was with the state, and I was involved in the creation of it and some of the negotiation from the state's perspective. The grant required that 22 jobs be created within 2 years, within the 2-year period of the grant, and within the second year of operation by Mr. Martinez of the business that he was going to operate. It was anticipated that the infrastructure would be built in the same timeline with the building so that they would both be completed about the same point in time, and would both building be ready for occupancy, infrastructure be ready to use, so that there would not be a too early expenditure by the state nor a too early expenditure by Mr. Martinez, so that one was ready to go before the other was ready to go. The letter agreements signed by Mr. Martinez reference that he'll create the 22 jobs before the second year of operation. However, I must admit the letter does not say when he must begin operation or when he must complete his building. It was unstated but understood that that would be within a reasonable period of time, about the same time the infrastructure would be finished, and that the project could go forward, the jobs get created, and the state be satisfied, the grant closed out, and everybody say, nice job, and go on about our business.
Is the infrastructure, could the infrastructure be considered the building that he currently has, or did it pertain to the park specifically?
The infrastructure was the fiber optic cable.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is the question about it being tied to property in the park, because I've never heard that. The part that I've always been referred to as far as our commitment or the commitment to DCA for the grant was the creation of the 22 jobs.
Right. Where Mr. Martinez's customer base was going to come from was defined by his business plan, but that was not something that was a part of a grant condition either imposed by the city or imposed by the state. The state reviews the business plan of the entity that is to be the job creator for validity and reality. And assuming that everything goes the way it should, then that business plan is the way that that businessman will proceed to complete his business, create the jobs, and go forward. I do not remember the specifics of where in that business plan the customer base was going to come from. The jobs that Mr. Martinez was going to create would be either in that building or who would work out of that building to those who would be putting the fiber optic to use. Customers of Mr. Martinez under his, I guess, licensing agreement would be the correct term with the city. Under his licensing agreement with the city for the fiber optic. Well, the city built it, he was going to light it.
Right. I know that there was a mutual commitment and a relationship and a partnership, and I just always was under the impression that the success or failure of the grant and or the commitment was predicated on job creation.
It is. 22 jobs plus a certain number of dollars of other private expenditure, and has that?
It was exactly $3,266,000, which have already been documented. The construction of a new building somewhere around the Park of Commerce has been done and been documented. And what we need to create is 22 jobs, which my conversation with Gord, I want to create as soon as possible. And the business plan does contemplate the construction of businesses to provide services to those businesses. And that's one of the reasons why we brought forth the 20-acre proposal to the city again. But on the longer haul, it actually says that, to answer your question, the building it refers to is a new building, because that building is where the points needed to get the grant were coming from. So it actually says that from completion of the new building. However, because of interest, not only of myself that I want to get moving and make money quickly, but also because I know that the city has other plans for further grants, and the city needs me to complete those 22 jobs quickly. We have come into an agreement to try to expedite that as possible.
Well, my point being from this side of the dais is that, my concern is that we don't get hurt in the grant process, in the current grant or any future grants, because it was my understanding possibly that there would be future penalties that may be imposed if there is a failure to fulfill a commitment. So for whatever it's worth, I just want to make sure to the manager that in the process that we do protect the integrity of the fiber optic ring, which is a valuable asset at a huge risk to the city as well, and that it doesn't hurt us in today's grant, but it doesn't hurt us in future grant attempts as well. And you coming from the state would know that very well. And that's one of the concerns that I have.
If I may interject, yes. The city faces 3 potential issues. Assuming the jobs never get created, the city has some risk of the money having to be paid back. Should fewer jobs get created than was promised in the grant application, the city will face some number penalty per job not created to be assessed against future grant applications for a period of 2 years or until such time as the city is funded in spite of the penalty. The third thing that the city is facing, and is in my opinion the most critical, is that while that grant is still open but unfulfilled, behind schedule if you may, the city will not be eligible to apply for additional CDBG grants. So come some date this spring or this summer, when that grant is due to be terminated and should have been finished, jobs created under the state's agreement with the city, if the jobs haven't been created and we had the opportunity to apply for an economic development CDBG grant to provide infrastructure to some other business, such as we've recently done with Institutional Products Incorporated and Equity One/Walgreens out on the east side of town, the state wouldn't be eligible to apply because we would have an open grant that was behind schedule.
Well, that's a critical component of the discussion, and I think Mr. Lossner's discussion about the settlement of the 1993 agreement is a critical component of this discussion. And I'm not aware of any discussions that you've had regarding the settlement agreement, but I certainly think that it should be as critical that we satisfy in some fashion, I don't know how, but we satisfy this commitment to the state so that we don't feel a future penalty in these CDGBs, because that's been $750,000 on an ongoing basis, and that kind of penalty over the next 3 years could be a substantial concern. So I would like to piggyback that issue as a critical issue to this discussion. And I would also like to say that one of the critical points in my mind is the financial ability for someone to do this. One of the things that we sometimes tend to overlook, I mean, the pictures are nice or the ideas are good, but at the end of the day, can they financially do what they say they can do? And that may be, Mr. Manager, to you, possibly a letter of credit, you know, something that gives you the comfort level that says, hey, these guys are real, because I'm not as you know, concerned about the fact that you get the extra 50 cents per acre on the property as much as that you get something built on that property that creates the job components that we're looking for. So there is, you know, in your list of questions, I want to make sure that whoever comes to the table has the financial ability to do it, and they will make a commitment to some sort of development of the park area in some sort of spec, flex, whatever you want to call it. But we need something out there that we can put people in, because they are knocking on the doors. And I'm going to, you know, go back to your discussion, but the schedule, I don't expect that 200,000 square feet in 6 days is an appropriate issue, but there's got to be some sort of commitment to something, because once that ball starts rolling downhill, I think it's going to be an issue that the economics will take over, and it'll start going fairly fast. And I predicate my decision on what we do with the 123 acres is based on the 123 acres. The visual concepts that Mr. Shiver has, although I may agree, have no bearing on what we talk about right now, because I'm convinced that that is a very delicate process that is very long and drawn out, which will include the local planning agency, which is our planning and zoning board, ability to review and discuss, and then ultimately ends up with city council. But that's a future discussion that needs to be decided, and I think at this point, although I'm appreciative of your vision being brought forward at this time, my discussion or my decision on this 123 acres is based on financial ability, getting some things done faster rather than later, And obviously, we want the cash at the end of the deal. We don't want no long-term leases, no wait till next year, no. I mean, this needs to get off of your lap. This needs to go into the private sector's hands so that somebody can make something happen. We have failed miserably for 14 years, 15 years, I don't know. And it's time to make a move, and that's my position. And I've been very quiet, and I appreciate everyone's discussion. But, Mr. Manager, that's my feeling on the issue.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Ms. Waldman?
To follow up with Mr. Porter before Mr. Losner starts with, talking about the 1983, I want to ask Rick a direct question. And maybe you said it, and maybe I just didn't hear it. Is the city responsible for providing a piece of land to Mr. Martinez at the Park of Commerce?
Under the CDBG grant application?
In any way? Yes, under that application.
No.
So we are not, and I'm just following up with Mr. Richardson because I want to make sure that I understand and that everyone else understands that that's not part of the grant. We haven't promised you that or anything else. And I don't mean to sound. No, well, let me finish, and then you can. I'm just asking questions. The 22 jobs that he was to provide, have you provided any of those jobs thus far?
Excuse me, Mr. Martinez, we need you to go to that microphone right now. Just go right there.
And I realize that...
Okay, the building had not been completed the building has been completed for 4 months roughly. Permits to get the CO of the building had not been issued because of them and some other issues.
Okay. All right. Is this building in the city limits of the city of Homestead?
Yes, the building is right next to the Park of Commerce on a 3.5 acre land that I bought from the city about a year and a half ago.
Okay, so
It's almost across the street from the water tower at the Park of Commerce.
I know where it is. So in other words, then, for some reason or another, you just haven't been able to get your CO on that, or?
Well, there were 4 major reasons during the summer, which was the hurricanes. Unfortunately, there was no electricity on the parcel, and FPNL delayed the completion of their parts for about 3.5 months. Afterwards, there were no sewers on the parcel, and the pump station could not be completed without electricity. So,
leads me to my next question to Mr. Stouts. Is there any way that we can get an extension due to these circumstances that were out of his control?
We can ask. I will say DCA, since I left, has become, and I don't mean that because I'm not there, but they have become under greater pressure from HUD to get grants completed and closed out. And they've taken a much harder stance on extensions on grant projects, and basically trying to go along with the city to do whatever it takes to bring it to a conclusion at some point in time way in the future. They've gotten much harder on extensions. They have to be well documented for the reason, and they have to be approved by the division director of the Division of Housing and Community Development.
And so, one last question. When you do get your CO and you're able to move into that building, will you be able to provide those 22 jobs?
Well, part of the business plan requires me to have some certain number of clients. However, I had met recently with the city manager to discuss alternatives that will cost me a lot of money, but I'm willing to do for the benefit of the city. I mean, I'm basically telling him that I'm going to hire people that I don't need in order for you guys to be able to complete the grant, even though, according to my grant, I have 2 years from completion of my building to create those jobs.
I see. Thank you very much.
Mr. Losner, you ready?
I'm ready, Mayor. My only regret is that we drank this whole pitcher of water over the last 2 hours.
Would you like me to get you another one if it's going to be that long?
I again wanted to thank all the proposers who came out tonight. It's for far more years than somebody my age should have been here. I've sat in these chambers on both sides of the table and watched an endless parade of hucksters and con men come through those doors, and it's heartening that's not what I'm seeing tonight, that we have real people with real plans and the apparent financial ability or the wherewithal to go out and finance very substantial and acceptable plans. And that's very heartening. I think clearly it's another indication that Homestead's time has arrived. And Mr. Smith mentioned something early in his proposal, probably about 3 hours ago, that reminded me of how we got to this point tonight. And there were some comments about talking about the Park of Commerce and the settlement of the 93 agreement. And without the city writing a very large check to the whole current holder of the 93 agreement, you can't have a discussion on the sale of the Park of Commerce without having a discussion on the 93 agreement. For those who are new to these chambers, what in hindsight looks like giving away the farm 12 years ago, when you put in perspective where Homestead was, there are liabilities there. The city does in fact have financial liabilities, as well as there are financial obligations flowing in both directions. Unfortunately, the city's financial obligation appears to outweigh the obligation of the holder of the agreement. So, unfortunately, I guess, as we sit here tonight, we do have to have the discussion. And getting back to what Mr. Smith reminded me of is last February when we were here, and Mr. Smith and Mr. Latner and his group and Landstar and I think a couple others were here. Up until that point, enforcement and resolution of the 93 agreement had lain dormant for many reasons, and things are changing so exponentially every day in our community. We all recognized on both sides of that agreement that it was time to resolve it and make it go away. And I don't know if Steve's tired of beating us up with the 93 agreement, but I know we're tired of hearing about it. And the last time we talked about the sale of the Park of Commerce, it became very clear, and we all recognized that the Park of Commerce was probably the city's last bargaining chip, if you will, to a resolution of that agreement. And if I might for a moment, my perspective, and the mayor appointed me the council liaison to work with the manager and the staff to sit down and try to bring back a comprehensive settlement of that agreement. And as we've discussed tonight, we're very close, and it's been a very long process, and there are many layers of other agencies that are involved, and it's not just a 93 agreement, but the 93 agreement encompasses agreements that were entered into in the early 70s and development orders that were entered into in the early 70s and continuing until after the 93 agreement. So it's just a deep, tangled morass of obligations and development orders. But if I might, for the benefit of my friends and colleagues on the council, is that there's probably 3 ways the agreement is going to be settled. Either the transfer of a multi-million-dollar check from the city of Homestead to the holder of the agreement, or some combination of credits given at closing to the holder of the agreement or is its designee in connection with the sale of the Park of Commerce, or we spend several years and several $100,000 in litigation to maybe end up with a settlement that we could have had tonight or sometime in the next few weeks, or a judge's directive that nobody's really happy with. So I guess my point of all that is that I almost want to apologize to the other proposers tonight in that maybe this discussion was somewhat premature by a few weeks. And I know, Mayor, we need to bring this to a close. And we're not here tonight to debate the merits, financial or otherwise, of anyone's proposal. And again, believe me, I'm limiting my comments to the 123 acres. And while extraneous issues that are related have been addressed, Ms. Garner and others, please recognize that the settlement of the agreement cannot contract away or contract for zoning or approvals. And many of those approvals that are related to the Blattner proposal for the balance of the 123 acres are out of our hands in some cases. They require state approval. So, we're a long way from that, and just, for your comfort level, we absolutely will not bring any proposal that, we can't. I'll use the word illegal. It's not appropriate to bring a proposal whereby we contract away zoning or, development approvals. But having said that, and although I was on the other side of the fence with the Berkowitz proposal for this site, I think that in this instance, it is appropriate for the council to give the manager direction to go ahead and set a time frame within which to either to bring back a proposed agreement for settlement, which includes consideration back and forth on the sale of the remaining 123 acres, or have the manager come back and say, we couldn't reach settlement, council, give me some direction, or that we haven't, and what's the next step. And again, I feel like we're kind of like shooting fish in a barrel, that we don't have all of the tools before us that we need, and that appraisal is an indispensable part. And I'm glad this is advertised as a workshop, because if we were, giving the manager direction tonight as to what other to deal with, I think it would be very foolhardy to do that without the appraisal. I think, Kurt, probably 2 weeks to have an appraisal in hand. And what I would propose is that 2 weeks from tonight, I think, is February 2nd. We should have an appraisal in hand by then. Now, it would be my perception that from the city side of the table and from the M&H side of the table, that we can hammer out anything that remains to be hammered out on the other bullet points of the settlement agreement for the 93 agreement, which would include an acquisition of the balance of the Park of Commerce for the uses that are presently approved and in place for the park. And I don't think any of the proposers here tonight have varied from that theme as to what's in place now for that portion of the park lying southerly of the lake. And I don't think anybody questions that, but to give the manager any other direction, I think would undo 8 to 10 months of. In all fairness to them, they've spent a lot of money to generate an NOPC and draw conceptual plans for this and those other things that are related to their use. And what I would like to be able to do is by the 11th of February, not later than, the 10th of February, is to be able to come back here and either ask, by a special call meeting, to either ask for an approval of a proposed settlement, which will include the sale of the Park of Commerce on a cash basis, fairly short closing, and we'll go through the math, and we'll have the benefit, and probably, Mr. Manager, as the appraisal comes in, to sit down individually with members of council and go through it, so that when we sit here in a public forum and talk about numbers, and I don't even know that all of you know where we are on the number spectrum in terms of dollars as to the M&H position as to what the city owes versus the city's position as to what the city might owe under that agreement, so that those numbers can be factored into the actual cash to the city at closing. Now, as we've heard tonight, nothing's ever easy, and Mr. Martinez is a factor, and my personal interest here is that Mr. Martinez owns a piece of property in town that the manager and I would really like to have as an additional piece to the future City Hall site.
I have no problem with negotiating.
And we talked in terms of some swapping, land and cash, and maybe that can be resolved, maybe it can't. But that's kind of a related issue where it's nothing's ever easy. But what I would suggest, the direction we give to the manager, is that if in the event we can't come to terms, or either come to terms and determine that the city all of a sudden has another checkbook and we can write a check for X million dollars to M&H Homestead Partners to settle the agreement, I think what we need to do is, for the benefit of all the proposers, probably establish some guidelines as to what we would look for in a third-party proposal to buy the Park of Commerce. I think Kurt's done a pretty good job of setting that out, that it'd be a fairly, within a 12-month closing, probably even within a 6-month closing, with a portion of a deposit non-refundable. I mean, our staff and our attorneys, our employees spend a lot of time and effort to analyze these proposals, and it's all part of the cost recovery that's in the 5-year plan, and I leave that in his discretion as to, in relation to what he's done with other contracts. But I would encourage all of the proposers, if they haven't done so, and if anybody submitted any letters of intent or formal contracts, I haven't seen them, and I don't know that any of the other members of council have seen them. But if you have and you need to make adjustments, or if you have not, the days of talking about he said, she said are over with. That if we need to have a fallback position, or are in a situation where we can't reach agreement, the 93 agreement is of overriding concern to the city. There is financial obligation there. And the least painful way to do that, if we can reach agreement, is to factor in the sale of the balance of the Park of Commerce. But if we can't reach that, I would encourage the proposers to be ready, and sometime between now and February 4th, which is about 2.5 weeks from now, have those written contracts or letters of intent in, so that we're not up here talking about what if or what about. Give us your last best and highest offer, just as a contingency. And again, I'm kind of embarrassed that we're going into our 4th hour here tonight and we're just having this discussion. But having lived through this for 8 to 10 months and trying to settle it, I think in the best interest of the city, the overriding concern is that the 93 agreement be released. That's one of the last 2 albatrosses around the city's neck, financial albatross, and that needs to go away. And believe me, I would like nothing more for that not to have been an issue tonight, and you all have a bidding war here tonight. I think we would see some really neat things come out of it, and new alliances formed. But we're going to live with, as I've said a couple weeks ago at stadium discussion, history's a pretty good teacher, and we've got to this council, none of whom, with the exception of the mayor, were even here in 1993, have to live with those cards that were dealt to us. And as much as we would like to have all of you do business and have a piece of the action in the park, it's my perspective, it's in the best interest of the city that we have another 2 to 3 weeks to attempt to to fully settle the 93 agreement. Mayor, if council members have any question first, I see Mr. Bass's hand is up out there, and
your question been answered, Mr. Bass?
Excuse me, can you...
Come to the mic right there, Mr. Bass.
I want to copy.
I've lived in the city, of course, for many years. I read the paper. I don't get to the meetings. Of course, it's past my bedtime now. But what is the sum and substance of the 93 agreement in so many words, and how much money are we talking about, just so I have an idea?
I want to be flippant and say you should read the Hometown Tribune, because last month I wrote a very lengthy article talking about...
I read the newsletter.
Well, you ought to read the Hometown Tribune. If you get a city utility bill, you get a Hometown Tribune, and we all have articles in there every month.
All right, I'm going to read this month.
And remember what was happening. The original developer of the villages of Homestead went bust, and the city was left being owed a lot of back taxes. And in order to entice M&H's predecessor in interest to come in and pick up the pieces from the old Villages of Homestead developer, the city was granted the rights to about 1,100 acres, which included the racetrack, the mitigation property, in exchange for ongoing obligations, such as the city obligated itself to construct certain roadways and do right-of-way and roadway improvements. It may have obligated itself to undertake a certain level of hooking up each house as it came time to finish each house and turn on the water and turn on the power. Certain things that would normally have been the developer's obligation. And I'll go back to my comment earlier. Homestead in 1993 was a far different place than it is today. So that's the sum and substance of the 93 agreement. And it's hard in retrospect in some cases to go back and put a hard and fast price tag on something that was obligated for 12 years ago.
Just so I understand, I know we're not supposed to...
The range of money, anywhere from $3 to $15 million. It's a lot of money. At either end of the spectrum, it's a lot of money.
Excuse me, we need you to go to the microphone if you're going. That's okay.
All I was saying is, realistically, the city, without really putting themselves over a barrel, cannot consider an outside party, because this is the last chip you have to resolve that kind of issue with M&H.
That hits the nail on the head exactly, Adam. No question.
Well, fortunately, we have a fellow like Mr. Ladner who's done an excellent job in what he develops, and came into town at a time when things were really depressed. I was here, and there were no takers on that property, and we appreciate all the fine work he's done, and hopefully he'll continue to do so. At the same time, hopefully he'll consider some of us to sell some of the property too, because we'd be good neighbors and be interested in investing in it.
And he's not the bad guy. He bought it.
Not at all.
Not at all. Agreement.
And there was a very bleak time following the storm, and the reality of the situation was it wasn't this bright and rosy outlook that you see now. So we can respect that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bass.
Any questions from council?
Yeah, I was just going to actually say what Mr. Bass said. I was going to encourage, if this is a bargaining chip, and it looks like it's going to be the bargaining chip, and if this is a successful bargaining chip and both sides are happy, by the way, I'm way more comfortable with the $3 million number. I just want you to know that. But if this was to become a bargaining chip, I really sincerely hope that all of these gentlemen here tonight are not excluded in any way, shape, or form, that they are included, and this is an all-inclusive deal. And I'm just hoping that we hear if it goes like I think it may go, I really hope to get back good reports from everyone in this room. I expect that from you guys.
Now, Mr. Losley, you talk about a time frame, and I would like to, in the motion, make that a drop deadline date that you come back with a recommendation.
And I agree, and I'm not comfortable bringing back any settlement proposal without an appraisal to back up those numbers.
I agree.
And and maybe Kirk tomorrow can get a better handle on that, but 2 weeks is probably a good time frame. Yeah.
February the 10th?
That's 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks and 3 weeks and a day from 3 weeks and 2 days from today. That would be a date that we would bring forward for consideration a settlement proposal.
Mr. Mayor?
The outside date.
May I ask a question too, to kind of piggyback on and give you another, can you tell me, is there significant exposure to the city in the failure to make the commitment of this grant? Is it significant enough for us to worry about?
Yes.
Okay, so with your opinion of it being significant enough for us to worry about, Mr. Lossner, could you additionally add that into your dialogue as far as issues that need to be settled, that we have to settle the grant commitment as well?
Mr. Moore, I have in fact had that discussion with the representatives for the holder of the agreement, and that will be a kind of a contingent or a bullet point to be addressed in the settlement proposal we'll bring forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shivers,
Mr. Mayor,
just reasonable?
I think it is very reasonable considering the fact that we've been negotiating for 8+ months anyway. And I also would say that the appraisal is really the hinge point or the contingent item that's out there, the document that's out there. The hammering out the agreement back and forth, I think we could do in the next week if we had to sit in a room. I have actually negotiated deals with your city attorney's firm in my previous life. We've done, in a day, just getting it done. Mr. Losner, the manager, and representatives from the city attorney, Ms. Sirota, of course, who's very diligent in negotiating for you guys. I've been on the other side of her before. We could probably knock out all of the 93 agreement points in a week. It's the appraisal that's going to be the thing that's contingent. If the appraisal, though, comes back in a week, and we can get done in 2 weeks, I mean, the outside date should be that February 10th. And we agree. We want a drop-dead date. We want to decide. We've got money in the bank waiting for this transaction to take place that's costing us money sitting there. So we want to get this done just as bad as you do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Wallman and Mr. Hodge.
Well, I just wanted to ask Mr. Losner, I just wanted to say that I'm going to be out of town on the 11th, so...
And that would be our outside date, and that gives us about a 9-day cushion after the latest anticipated delivery of the appraisal. So, yeah, that's an outside date.
Okay, I just won't be here on the 11th, so I'd appreciate if it's not on that date. Thank you.
Mr. Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to, give out my appreciation for all the proposals that came tonight. I really like to see unity and unity in our community working together. And in light of the business owners showing up together as a team was a great show of that, and that's well respected, and I appreciate that. I'm glad you guys put that together and did that. You showed this council that there are people interested in the park, and the park is a valuable asset to the city. And based in light of the information that Mr. Lawson has shared with us, there's somewhat of a liability. There is a liability there for the city to take care of. However, I would like to see M&H, work with these people, and Mr. Smith, sadly talk about the risk. You'll think he was in the insurance business, but he talked about the risk, and I would ask that he would take out your legal pad and get these guys' names and phone numbers and let them be first on your list. So as this develop and when it do develop, those first parcels be these gentlemen bringing jobs into the community, because I sit in the chair of economic development, community development, and my goal is job creation. So basically where I sit is I want to see these guys bring businesses and jobs to Homestead, and that's pretty much where I stand. And I know an existing business that already have a business comes and bring their business, or they're bringing jobs. There's no lag in time period, because they got to continue making money to recoup their investment that they already have out there. So we have businesses sitting right here in our midst. So we would ask that you commit to these gentlemen, and if you don't mind, I'd love for you to put it on record for us tonight that you'll commit to these gentlemen to make sure that they're the first into that park.
I think, Councilman Hodge and Mayor, Council, I think Mr. Smith alluded to that earlier. It is not one 100,000 square foot user that's going to make this park successful. It is everything from the gamut. Now, the representative from Vision Council said, we need to go bigger. Well, I disagree wholeheartedly. 5 years ago when that economist was here speaking, that was a different time in the market. And with all due respect, we can use the foreign trade zone as a marketing tool, and that will be a component, but none of these gentlemen sitting here need a foreign trade zone. These gentlemen sitting here need a building to operate in. They want to build a boat. They want to have an office building. They want to have, something that we can put relocate and come down here and really get things going. We commit wholeheartedly to working within the confines of the land development regulations, because there has to be consistency. I mean, I'm not going to enter into an agreement with somebody to build a boat yard, an open-air boat yard. I mean, nor would Durham ever let you do that, you know that? But, I mean, not just to use you as an example, we're not going to enter into that agreement. But we're going to enter into an agreement with any one of these users that have legitimate development plans and are willing to abide by the land development regulations that we still have to go through that process. Remember, we have to go back through that now to make sure that we have in place land development regulations that will allow for that kind of use. And then maybe they're there, but we've got to really look at that. But Mr. Hodge, we commit to working with anybody and everybody that would like to come and be part of our Park of Commerce.
Thank you. Rick, in terms of Mr. Porter's questions about the 22 jobs, would it be prudent for us to ask the state for an extension now? Because I don't see you meeting that obligation.
I'm not off the top of my head familiar with when that grant is supposed to terminate, but we need to do it.
Check it. I think that'd be very important.
But we need to do it in about 90 days prior to that.
It's been extended twice.
It's been extended twice already?
It's been extended twice, correct?
I think it's been extended once.
Okay, well, I think that's part of what the mayor's asking. We need to know, is it been extended? Can we extend it? All that?
I can get that information and have it for you. I'll do everybody an email on it.
We've had a lively discussion on the Park of Commerce, but I think we've come to a point where I think with Mr. Lars as our liaison, I think the manager have some direction on where we need to go with this thing, and I would hope that no later than February 11th, Ms. Rawman nor Ms. Councilman Magana will hear the 1993 agreement. It will be done. Is there a motion?
We don't need one.
We don't need a motion, Madam Attorney?
No,
just a direction? Well, I think the direction is clear.
Yeah, this is just a workshop.
Okay.
I don't think that a motion.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'd like before we do that, I'd like a copy of the 93 agreement, so. I'd like a copy of the 93 agreement, please. Copy of the 93 agreement. Thank you very much. Yeah.